Now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Howell versus Bays, step forward, please.
23-year-old Crystal Howell is suing her neighbor, Rory Bays, for money owed on a 1989 Mitsubishi Montero she sold him. Rory claims it was never a legal sale.
Miss Howell, you sold the defendant a used car.
Correct.
For $1,900.
That is correct.
He paid you, according to you, $900, and the understanding was he was going to make payments for the rest, the
Correct.
other $1,000. Within a relatively short period of time, the engine blew up in this car. What year car was it?
It was an 89. However, I would like to point out that at the time he bought the vehicle, he was aware of...
Just don't tell me what he was aware of.
Okay.
You can't tell me what he was aware of.
Can I tell
Unless
you what I told him?
No.
Okay.
What you can do is you can show me a bill of sale.
Yes. What would that
Bill
be
of
the
sale.
title? Or I have a
contract, a bill of sale.
Written agreement. There you go.
So this is a 1989 car, which is now 18 years old, and you sold it to him for $1,900. And he says Arbla is responsible for the purchase of this 1989 Mitsubishi, payments, what the delivery payment was, and how they were supposed to be made, the rest of the payments, when they were supposed to be made. Nothing about the condition of the car, nothing. That's all it says. So you can't tell me what you told him, you can't tell me what he knew, you can't tell me anything else, because anything else should have been in this contract. Do you understand? Law does not permit you to go outside the four corners of this contract. So you were selling him this car. It blew up after him. No, not as is. You did not say that here. Do you understand that? Good. So the car blew up, but that still doesn't relieve you, sir, of the obligation of paying for the car. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Except you say that she didn't have clear title to sell you the car.
No, ma'am, she didn't.
That when the car blew up, you went to try to take it to a salvage for the purpose of, put your hand down, for the purpose of getting some money, so you were going to pay for it.
Correct.
And you didn't have clear title to the car.
Correct.
May I interject?
Yes.
The person that I purchased it for never took his name off the title, which I was unaware of, because the automobile
then
that
he's
I bought...
absolutely right. You did not give him clear title.
But
listen to me.
Automobile dealership that I purchased it from is responsible for transferring the title.
Listen to me. What he's saying is, and he's absolutely right.
I have a copy of the lien right here, ma'am.
I'd like to see it. You did not have clear title to sell him this car.
However, I will say that when I purchased the vehicle, I had owned that car for 6 years. I purchased this off 3 years before selling it to Rory.
Hugh is the lien holder.
He was the gentleman that I purchased the car from.
Miss Howell,
I owe him no money.
What I'm telling you is, you did not give him clear title to this car.
I was unaware of that.
How much did you pay for it?
I paid $2,900 to $3,500. I'm not positive of the amount.
Let's say you paid $2,900 for it. You sold it to him for $1,900. You got $900 from him, which means you had the car for 6 years or so, and it cost you $2,000. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I don't feel badly at all dismissing your claim.
But
not at all. Because this agreement that you just gave me is void because you had no right to sell him the car. And I don't care what you put in it in order to maintain it.
It had a brand new motor. May I please call my father as a witness?
Miss Howell.
Yes.
Is he going to tell me that there wasn't a lien on the car?
No.
Then I'm not interested in what he has to say. Thank you very much. Your case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may case number 73 on the calendar in the matter of Padilla versus Kern.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat, please.
Ms. Padilla, this is your ex-husband. You've been divorced since when?
Our divorce was finalized in November of 2004.
And you have one child together?
Yes.
How old is that child?
He's now 5.
I'd like you to keep your voice up, Ms. Padilla, because I have difficulty hearing you. Not because there's anything terribly wrong with my hearing, but I know that you may be a little nervous. You're speaking softly. You have to speak up like me.
No problem.
Great. Make believe you're yelling at him.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Your lawsuit alleges that Mr. Kern filed false allegations against you with Child Protective Services, forcing you to hire an attorney. You want your attorney's fees back and the expenses that you incurred as a result of defending that litigation. Mr. Kern says he had legitimate concerns over his child, and that's why he made the report. Okay? Do you have other children?
1.
How old?
Same age. A little older by a few months.
Who does that child live with?
Her. I didn't know of his existence till long after he was born. It's quite a story.
Well, it's quite a story, but it has an age-old beginning.
They're 6 weeks apart.
Another 10.
And I assume you've done the appropriate DNA testing and everything else, paternity testing, so that while you were married, you fathered another child. Is that right?
No, it was before I was married. Before her and I got married, her and I were together. She told me she had an abortion, so we never talked again. Me and her got back together. And then after, actually the day my son Cameron was born, I get another phone call from her saying, oh, guess what?
Do you see that child?
No.
So that there are no other siblings in your house?
No.
How many children do you have?
I have 2.
How old are they?
They're 7 and 5.
The 7-year-old is not Mr. Kern's child.
No.
When did you and Mr. Kern separate?
In November of 2002.
So the baby was an infant at the time.
Yes, he was.
Was there any issue as far as custody at that time?
At that time, Mr. Kern left, and Cameron did stay with me. And when we did our divorce papers, we decided to do 50-50 custody. And up until this recent event, we did share 50-50 custody.
When you say 50-50 custody, how did that break down in the week?
We would alternate weeks. One week I would have 3 days, he would have 4. The next week I would have 4 days, he would have 3.
So that really required that you live in close proximity to each other.
At the time, I was in Riverside, California, and he was up in Apple Valley, so about an hour away.
So, Mr. Kern, you had your son half the time.
Correct.
But you, I assume, always knew that there would come a time when he went to school and you couldn't have that kind of an arrangement because you can't live an hour away from each other and still do that.
Correct. I offered to put him in private school, and she didn't want that. She lives in Colton.
Just a second. You offered to put him in private school near you.
Correct.
Well, she didn't want him to be in a private school
She
near
wanted
you. Shh, Mr. Kern, because that would mean that she would lose her 50% of the custody time.
Negative.
Sure it would, because if he's in private school near you, of necessity, he has to spend 5 days a week at your house. In any event, she said, no, I want to put him in school where I am, right?
Correct.
She wanted the child to go to school in her location, you wanted the child to go to school in your location, and then the trouble began. So, Mr. Kern, why don't you tell me the timeline from there? She brought papers to you to ask you to sign off so that you could register the child in school.
Yeah, and that if I didn't agree, she wouldn't let me have my son. She was going to leave in the parking lot right then and there. Actually, it started long before that. My son had lots of marks and bruises on him that were questionable. And every time I'd ask her, how did this happen? It was always the same story. Oh, he got it playing with his brother, or he got it fighting with his brother. One February day, she called me, said, hey, he had a bit of an accident. I don't know if I'm going to take him to the hospital or not. I'm just letting you know. I said, okay, do I need to come down there? I'll take him myself. She said, no. He showed up that weekend, and I have pictures right here. He has a complete black eye. He has a gash in his eye.
I'd like to see it.
And these are some other pictures of bruises and marks on him from when he's come from her house. Hand marks, bruise on his shoulder, other marks on his face from different times. And I took those pictures to my attorney, asked him what they think I should do, and that's when I took that to the court.
I wouldn't say a word if I were you. You are no relation to this case.
That's my wife.
I understand exactly who it is, sir. I understand exactly who it is, and if you want the situation with your son to ultimately resolve itself, I would suggest that she let you do the talking. That's the problem. Well, see, black and blue marks on his arms.
I also have a video that I think you need to see that's important in this case.
Oh, this is his leg.
This is just one of 100 times of how he acts when he goes back to his mother. And I think it's very important that you see this video right here.
Sure.
And after my attorney told me, after I took that to court for next court.
Don't tell me what your attorney told you, sir. What your attorney told you was hearsay.
All right, here we go, guys.
Cameron, come on, baby. Hey, the sooner you go with your mommy, the sooner I get to come get you and we can do Christmas. Come on, honey. Cameron. Come on, it's time to go with your mommy, honey. Don't do that. Come on. Mommy misses you and she wants to see you. Okay, baby? Come on.
I've seen enough. Turn it off, please.
That's not even the good part. The part where he throws himself on the ground, and I asked, let me talk to him to calm him down. She won't let me. He's banging on the window in her car, screaming for me, and takes off.
I don't understand why you're photographing this.
Well, actually, that was upon her request in the court. She wanted to videotape pickups or drop-offs, so if somebody said something they shouldn't, they could take it to court.
That was at her request? Mm-hmm. Is that right?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I have it on the minutes.
I'd like to see it. It's a major concern to me to videotape a child like that, who was clearly as young as he is, playing for the camera. Well, this just says the parties stipulate that the visitation exchanges may be videotaped and audiotaped.
Yeah, she did that because she accused me of bad-mouthing her when I pick up or drop off my son. So the judge said that we can videotape or audiotape the pickup or drop-offs. And they...
Just a second. Then she didn't ask for it. She accused you,
and we went to court. Her
Mr. Kern,
said,
listen to me. I'm really big on two parents getting involved and being integral parts of their children's lives, fathers and mothers. I think it's really important. And I don't know which one of you is a better custodial parent. I really don't know. Sounds to me as if you adore him.
He's my life.
And it sounds to me, based upon the answer that you submitted to me, that you legitimately feel that you are a more fit custodial parent. Maybe, but I'm telling you what I'm seeing. The injuries that you've shown me here are nothing compared to what my kids had when they were growing up.
But if your kid came
broken
arms, on his face or something,
broken
would you not be
arms,
concerned?
jumping off the beds with their siblings, banging heads, getting hit in the face with a lacrosse stick, all kinds of things happen to children, especially children who have a close in age sibling.
But then where's the supervision?
Excuse me?
If something like that happens to his face because he was fighting with his brother, where was the supervision?
Can't supervise children all the time, Mr. Kern. What planet are you living on, sir?
This one. These things don't happen at my house. I have 2 full-grown German Shepherds. He has his own bike. He has everything in the world a kid could ever want.
Mr. Kern,
and these things don't happen in my home.
Mr. Kern, what you don't have in your house is another child.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
And nowhere in that report does he say, my mommy hits me, my mommy beats me.
No, but it does talk about domestic violence, about how her boyfriend hits her and she hit him back. And that's from what he's seen.
Crystal Padilla claims the father of her child, James Kern, falsely accused her of abuse to Child Protective Services. She is suing for her attorney fees.
The only issue in this case, as far as I'm concerned, is do these pictures of marks on the child give him sufficient reason for him to have placed a call to Child Protective Services to investigate?
I never called Child Protective Services. I just filed an ex parte hearing saying, for my concerns about those marks. I never called CPS not once.
Just a second. So you filed a proceeding, an ex parte proceeding, for what?
To get custody of my son so we could find out what was going on. I have letters here from a psychotherapist.
Just a second. So you had 50-50 custody, and based upon these photographs, you went to court through your attorney and filed an ex parte order seeking physical custody full-time of your child based upon these photographs.
And letters from a psychotherapist that interviewed my son to find out where the marks were coming from, which I have these right here as well.
So while the child was with you, in addition to taking these photographs, you took him to a psychologist.
Yeah, upon my attorney's advice.
Listen, Mr. Kern, I was there for 25 years. I know exactly what's going on, sir. I know precisely what's going on. Now, when did you file your ex parte proceeding, sir?
End of April '06.
And when did Miss Padilla tell you that she wasn't going to allow you to enroll the child in private school in your area?
She served me on my first wedding anniversary, which was March 12th, '06, and that's where the court
Just
papers
a second.
began.
So in March of '06, Miss Padilla served you with papers seeking what?
That she wanted him to go to school in her area, which is Colton.
So she served you with papers in March of '06. And in April of '06, you saw an attorney, brought photographs, and at that point filed your own ex parte order for an immediate transfer of custody based upon allegations of abuse. Is that right?
According, yes.
I'm getting the timeline here.
Upon my attorney's advice.
That wasn't his first response to my petition. His original response noted nothing of physical abuse.
Okay. Then he took these pictures that he had been saving up and storing up since December of 2005.
That's not true. On my
attorney.
first response, noted a lot of things. The fact that she lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with her sister and her 2 children, with her other son and my son. My son coming to my house telling me he sleeps on the couch with his brother while she sleeps in her room with her boyfriend.
Mr. Kern, how much support do you pay for that child support?
Which one?
That lady's child.
$250.
$250 or what?
A month.
Pay it every month?
Nope.
So you don't pay child support?
Not every month. Sometimes I get behind on bills and stuff. I can't make the payment.
He hasn't paid in over 3 years.
Yes, I have.
I'm getting there. And how much child support do you pay now for this child?
I believe it was $400 a month if she took him to school. I let my employer have the information, and I don't think they've started that yet.
So how much do you pay her?
$400 a month or something like that. I don't quite
$400.
recall.
Well, the employer hasn't started deducting it from your salary yet. So how much do you give her every month?
Nothing.
Why?
Because if I give it to her, she'll never report it.
But in between the time that the child support order takes place, sir, and they start with the income deduction order, Months could go by before that happens. So how do you expect your child to be supported? Okay, so now you have 2 children, and if I am correct, from what you tell me, Mr. Kern, who you want me to believe you're father of the year, you have 2 children for whom
I'm not father
you are
of the year.
currently paying 0 child support. And this from a man who said, I want to put my son in private school near me.
I had 50% custody at the time.
No,
Actually,
no,
I had
listen to
more.
me. Listen to me. This is from a man who said, I want to pay for private school. And now you tell me that you have 2 children, 5 years old, for whom you are currently paying nothing in child support.
That's not every month. Just because she hasn't received hers yet, that's the child support agency, not my fault. I'm not going to give it to her and have her deny it.
You got where we're going? He thinks he's a step ahead of me. I was there for 25 years, Mr. Kern. I know exactly what's going on. Exactly. Well, let's finish the scenario. You went to court. You had a lawyer. Did you have a lawyer?
On the Monday, I went to...
Just answer my question. Did you have a lawyer?
On our next court date, we did.
And the child's custody was immediately transferred to the father.
For
Is
the
that
month
right?
pending.
Just answer my question.
Yes.
For how long did Mr. Kern have custody?
Until May 17th of 2006.
And then what happened?
That was our original court date, and we went to mediation.
When you went back to mediation, was a forensic expert assigned to the case?
No.
We were assigned to do a 7:30 evaluation.
And what was the name of the therapist who was doing the evaluation?
Dr. Michael.
You have a copy of that report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it. So as a result, I assume, at least in part of the forensic evaluation, the court determined that the custody arrangement that you originally agreed to was not workable.
Correct.
Is that right? And ultimately, primary physical custody was ordered to you.
Yes, it was.
And the court granted you visitation 3 weekends a month. Is that right?
Big drop from having them half the time, huh?
Absolutely right, sir. You're supposed to be smart enough to know that whatever custody arrangement you make when a child is 2 is not going to be able to hold true when the child is 6 or 8 or 10 or 12. And you're supposed to be able to work with each other. And just because you got angry that she wasn't going to allow you to have your way...
How's that right? These pictures were started being taken in December, beginning of December, when she filed in March. So how is it I got mad and all of a sudden, magically appeared some pictures in December?
Kern,
These are concerns I've had for a while.
Either that, sir, or you don't understand what it's like to be a 5-year-old with a 7-year-old sibling, with a black and blue mark on the knee, with a scratch above the eye, with a black and blue mark on the hand, with scrapes across the face. It happens. It happens. And nothing that I read in this report suggested, absolutely nothing, that your child complained that any of those marks were as a result of his mother's actions.
I have some other letters here that you should read then.
Absolutely.
There is also a section about her in the 7:30 evaluation, the psychotherapist that wrote the letters that he is showing you now. And nowhere in that report does he say, my mommy hits me, my mommy beats me.
No, but it does talk about domestic violence, about how her boyfriend hits her and she hit him back.
Listen,
and that's from what he's
the
seen.
problem, Mr. Kern, is that you really are going to have to back off in interfering with what goes on in her house.
If your child sees domestic violence, should I not be concerned?
What I'm telling you is you have to back off as to what goes on in her house. You're not supposed to ask your son anything about what goes on in her house.
The therapist asked him that.
I didn't say the therapist. I said you're not supposed to ask him anything about what goes on in his house. And she's not supposed to ask him anything about what goes on in your house. You're both supposed to assume that each of you love him and want to take care of him and want to protect him and do the right thing. That's what you're supposed to assume. And you, Mr. Kern, are supposed to pay child support for that child, for this child, who you now don't have in your custody. I mean, I read the report, and the report indicated that when this forensic evaluation was done, your son says you don't work, and you're home all the time.
No, I'm a contractor, so I choose my own hours.
That's what he says. He says, my father doesn't
Well, I make
work.
sure I'm home when he's there.
I'm telling you what your son says, sir.
I know what he says, and I'll make
His
you
son
explain it
says,
to you.
my father doesn't work. Well, that's not a good thing for a child to even think that his father doesn't work. That's what he said. Told the
Well, that's
therapist,
because he's
my
5
father
years old. He thinks a magic wand pays the bills. Just because I go out of my way to make sure I'm home when he's there so we can spend time together. I work when he's not with me.
If you have him with you 4 days a week, sir. You should be working
It's
part
not
of that
4
time.
days a week.
That's what you told me.
I'm not home
You told
4
me
days a
that
week.
you
It
had
could be 3 days a week,
50-50
1 week.
custody.
It could be 3 1 week. It could be 2 if my
Mr.
wife's
Kern,
off.
you got an
she
answer
watches
for
it.
everything, sir. What you're asking me for is counsel fees. That's what you're asking me for.
Right.
Counsel fees. And I'm not granting those because he went to an attorney. I just want you to think about this. He went to an attorney and sought the advice of counsel who represented him when you filed an application to terminate the 50-50 custody arrangement. So you filed the petition first. He had to hire a lawyer. And he just said, I'd rather be on the offensive rather than on the defensive because that's his temperament.
Well, he didn't consult an attorney first. He stated that my father told him to take me to court.
No, I didn't.
He went, listen, did he have an attorney representing him?
At the ex parte hearing, he did, yes.
Did he have the attorney representing him in the case that you filed?
No.
I'm talking about the original date in May, because that you said was the original court date you had on your application. Did you have an attorney or not?
Yes.
I believe he had an attorney. His attorney started the process, so the attorney of necessity had to be with him. You don't get your counsel fees. It's unfortunate that both of you spent your money on legal fees, but you don't get your counsel fees, just like he doesn't get his. But he's better start to pay child support.
They can't find any child support because I've received a 2-cent check since the child support was ordered.
That is not true.
Well,
Here you go.
if he doesn't pay the child support order, what I'm going to suggest you do is go to the court and ask to have his driver's license suspended. You too. The first thing that states have to do under federal guidelines is take away his driver's license. And as a contractor, he needs that. Otherwise, his wife is going to have to drive herself to work and him to work. Don't let him get away without paying child support. That's his obligation as a parent, to you and to you and to your children. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Your case is dismissed. He's not required to pay your counsel fees. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Sorry, out the back door.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Maffett versus Simmons, step forward.
Rachel Maffett is suing her ex-boyfriend, Brad Simmons, for unpaid rent and bills while they lived together. Brad claims he owes her nothing.
Ah, Bird, I really am so glad I don't use this internet thing. Miss Maffett, you met the defendant on something called MySpace.
Yes.
Which is on the internet where people go to meet each other rather than, meeting each other for a cup of coffee or whatever. You exchange information. And you knew him for a brief period of time, and he moved in.
Yes, he asked to move in.
And it is your claim that while he was there, he paid no rent and bills. He owes you $2,000 for the time that he lived with you. Mr. Simmons says that there was never a financial agreement when he moved in. It was only when he left, unceremoniously, according to Miss Maffett. You left her a note?
No, ma'am.
What did you do?
I packed up all my stuff while she was gone because of the fact that she was a little unstable. I didn't feel comfortable staying there. I packed all my stuff, so I headed out of there, and then I went back to the house and waited for her to come home. And then I told her face to face.
Oh, okay. Well, not as bad as I thought.
Your Honor, I do have a note.
You do have a note?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see the note. When did you get the note?
When I came home and found all of his stuff gone from the house.
The note was only...
Okay. So you write this letter because you believed she was involved with a couple of other people at the same time she was involved with you. It's a very hurt letter, and you say, I can't talk to you right now. You want to communicate with me through MySpace because you're too hurt. You couldn't trust her. Okay, got it. When did you move in, Mr. Simmons?
It was sometime before Christmas. I don't know the exact date.
You remember the date?
I do not. It was probably after 3 or 4 dates, though.
Sometime in mid-December.
Yes, ma'am.
Of 06. And you moved in at her invitation.
Yes, ma'am.
And when did you move out?
I moved out, it was the first week of February.
So let's say
It was before Valentine's Day.
You remember when he moved out?
It was before Valentine's Day, but he was over at my house probably 5 days a week. After that, he promised that we would get back together, and
so he lived
still
with
loved
you
me.
maybe 6 weeks.
Right.
That is untrue. I did not go after.
Shh. Did anybody live with you before, Miss Maffett?
Not in that apartment, no.
Has anybody lived with you since?
No.
So you weren't looking for somebody to share the bills with?
No, I was not.
So what money do you think he owes you? For the
he owes
6
me-
weeks that he was there?
He lived there for probably 8 weeks, and
6 weeks. Keep going.
And he did say that he would pay for half of the bills. He actually asked me if he could live with me. He says that he thinks it may be the L word, and so that he wanted to come live with me because his family was unstable, and he said that his father was beating him.
That is untrue, Your Honor.
Listen to me. He left. You have no downside.
Well, I paid for all of the food. He eats probably enough for 3 people a day.
Yeah.
And he did promise me to pay $2,000 from a bonus that he was going to be getting from his new job. And every time I would go to pay bills, he would say, oh, no, it's okay, you're going to get that other money, so we can do this instead and have fun and eat out and things like that. So I did spend money on things that I normally wouldn't have if I were living alone. I work 2 jobs and I am trying to finish school, so I'm just barely eking by.
Mr. Simmons says he gave you $500 while he was there.
He gave me $300 when he first moved in, which we promptly used on food and going out to eat.
Was it 3 or 5?
It was $500. I gave her $300 when I moved in, like she said, and then at another point, about 2 days before we broke up, we went out to eat with my uncle at Johnny's Pizza, and I gave her another $200. There was never agreement. I was just trying to
I believe you that you gave her $500. Do you feel, Mr. Simmons, as if you owe her any money?
No, ma'am.
Was there ever an agreement for you to pay rent there?
No, ma'am. When I moved out, I figured the $500 I gave her, plus I maintained the upkeep of the house, and I cooked. So I feel that's...
You don't get credit for that.
I feel that the money that I gave her at the time that I was there was
You gave her $500?
Yes, ma'am.
What's your rent, by the way?
My rent is $580 a month.
He's paid you enough, Miss Moffett.
Miss Judge Judy, I actually have an email here stating that he was going to give me the $2,000.
Oh, then I'll see it.
I never sent an email. She did have access to my email password.
No, I did not.
Because it was saved on her computer.
Just a second.
Judge, I also have emails saying that he would lie in court, that he admitted to lying in court. He admitted to cheating on me with men.
That's untrue, Your Honor.
Oh, listen, I'm not interested
that he
in
wasn't working
I'm
when
not
he was
interested in
working.
that. It has nothing to do with me. Absolutely nothing to do with me. The only thing that has to do with me is whether or not you just refuse to put a period and say, made a mistake, shouldn't have invited this guy in to live with me after knowing him for just 4 dates. You have no downside. He gave you $500. He was there for 6 weeks, and I'm not sure that you wrote this thing yourself. Case is dismissed, Miss Moffett. Put a period. It's over. Goodbye.
Thank you. You may step out. Yeah, this is case number 68 on the calendar in the matter of Whitaker versus Canavan.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Miss Whitaker, the defendant was your best friend, and it is your claim that she stole $800 out of a duffel bag. In that duffel bag was also some sort of hair straightening device. So you're suing her for the value of that. First of all, why was there cash in a duffel bag?
Because we were out all day long, so I left the cash in the duffel bag so that I didn't lose it, because $800 is a lot to have carrying around.
What was $800 doing in your duffel bag?
I had used it to get my car fixed. My boyfriend had lent it to me so I could fix my car.
When did your boyfriend give you $800 to fix your car?
He's over in Iraq right now, so he had sent me his ATM card with his PIN number, so he had let me withdraw the money from the ATM.
Why didn't you leave the money home?
Because I hadn't been home in the time that I had withdrew the money.
Oh, you said, I withdrew the money on approximately 5 separate occasions.
Yes, ma'am.
So what I'm asking you is, why didn't you leave the money home? The answer is not that you weren't home. You were home in between those 5 different days that you deposited the money.
No, ma'am, I was not. I was with Danielle the entire time. I had not been home once.
Over how many days did you withdraw the money?
2, the 13th and the 14th of March.
So you were keeping it in the duffel bag to fix your car?
Yes, ma'am. The duffel bag was at Danielle's house the entire time.
Why are you looking so ridiculously funny?
I'm not. I just think it's funny because it's not. None of it's true. I just know that none of it's true. So I'm just listening to what she's saying.
Who else lives in Danielle's house?
At the time, only her sister's boyfriend.
What's your sister's boyfriend's name?
Zach.
Why was he staying with you?
It's my sister and her boyfriend's house. She moved in when they started dating. Now they're engaged. So
you were staying with them?
Yes, I was living with my sister in Spring Hill.
They weren't living with her. She moved in with her sister and her sister's boyfriend.
Correct.
On what date did you find the duffel bag missing?
The 15th, we'd had a fight. My duffel bag was still at her house. She had spent the night at my house the previous night. We had a fight, so I made her leave. And like 20 minutes after, I realized. So I called her, and she told me that I wasn't getting it back.
Okay, you made her leave. What did you say to her?
We just got into a fight. We were screaming at each other, and she just left. And I told her, just get out.
What did you say when you called her 20 minutes later?
I just told her that because I had clothes and my hair straightener and everything, I just told her that I needed it all back, and she told me.
No, just a second. Did you say anything about cash?
No, ma'am.
You just said my duffel bag is there and I have stuff in it?
Yes.
What did you say? Tell me what you said.
Just that my duffel bag was still there and I needed it back.
And what did she say?
She told me that I wasn't going to get it back.
Why did you say that to her?
I did not say that to her.
Yes, you did. There's no question
didn't.
in my mind you said that to her.
No, ma'am, I
Can I
There's
say
no question
something?
in my
Not
mind
yet.
that I didn't say it. There was no phone calls. There was about 6 text messages first on the phone, and then it was followed by her calling me and threatening me.
Okay, well,
So
what did the
there-
text?
I didn't call her at all.
I didn't say you called her.
Okay.
I didn't say you called her.
No, I know.
You're not paying attention.
I just said
You're
she
not
called
paying
me.
it-
I was just letting you know she was the one that called me.
That's what she said.
Okay. I was just confirming the fact that she was right, that she did call me. Oh my God.
Something wrong with your affect. Pay attention.
No.
Put on your listening ears. What did you say when she called you and told you about the duffel bag?
She didn't say anything about the duffel bag.
What did she call you for?
She told when we were previously at her house, she mentioned something.
No. When
She
you had a fight and
Okay.
you left.
Yeah.
Listen to me very
Uh-huh.
carefully. When you had a fight and you left, she called you. That you just told me happened. What did she say when she called you?
She said that she to come back to the house that she was going to stab me. It had nothing to do about the duffel bag.
She said, "Come back to the house because I'm going to stab you."
Yeah. And I called. And then after her phone call, I called up her mother and let her know that she called me and said that. This is my best friend since I was about 5 years old. I went to his house. I was crying, upset. It's about 25 minutes back to my sister's house. I didn't want to drive back there upset because I knew, you just don't want to drive when you're upset. So I stopped at his house, and that was about the time she did like 6 text messages. And about 5 minutes after I got to his house, he was actually sitting there when she made that phone call. And then I called her mother, and I actually called the police. And I told them that I didn't have time to do a full report because I had to get back up to my sister's house to have her car back so she could get to work. But I told them that I was scared and that I just wanted to call in and at least let them know and give them the names. And they said, okay.
Where's her duffel bag?
Her duffel bag was still at my house. But it takes about 25 minutes there and back. So I didn't want to go all the way back up there and then come back. Told her
I
she
just
could go.
asked you a question. Where was the duffel bag?
It was still at my house.
And what happened when you got to your house?
Got to my house. My sister used her car, and I stayed there.
What did you do with the duffel bag?
It stayed there. I didn't touch the duffel bag.
How did your sister get hold of her hair straightener?
Because I lived there. About 2 days later, I moved out, and I left it there by accident. And my sister
Just a
hadn't
second.
brought it back yet.
Okay.
But I don't.
How did your sister get her hair straightener? Because I read your answer.
Because
what?
I lived with her.
Well, what was she doing going into the duffel bag? Was she a thief?
Her and she let me use the straightener before we left to go to
The
her
duffel bag was, the hair straightener
No,
was in the duffel
no,
bag.
it wasn't. It was in my bathroom plugged in because right before we left to go hang out with a few of our friends, go back towards her house, we did our hair, so it was left in my bathroom plugged in.
Is
And we
that
turned
correct?
it off.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So now where's the duffel bag?
On my rack in my bedroom because I didn't have a closet. I had a rack with my clothes on it, so it was on the bottom rack.
So who stole her money?
There was no money in it.
Oh, yeah, she's going to show me proof that she took money out.
Oh, I bet she did take money out, but there was no cash in the duffel bag.
How do you know that?
One, because...
How do you know that?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'm very reluctant to make a judgment that somebody took property, because to label somebody a thief, as far as I'm concerned, is a very serious thing.
And later today,
One night we hung out and had relations.
When was it?
About January 15th.
I assume that either you were disappointed with January 15th or you found his behavior somewhat bizarre.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Elizabeth Whitaker claims former friend Danielle Kahneman stole $800 from her duffel bag. Danielle says Elizabeth spent the $800 on drugs.
Madam, I asked you a simple question. You're giving me all kinds of
doesn't
mumbo
make sense
jumbo.
to me.
How did you know there was no cash in the duffel bag?
Because my friend Sam called me up and said that Beth was calling her up to ask her for cocaine. I was worried about it, and that's when I called her boyfriend. But she was my best friend. If there was cash in her duffel bag, don't you think she would have said something to me when she asked me to bring back the duffel bag?
Not if you had just had a fight.
Okay, well, 3 weeks after, when she actually came and picked it up, she never said one word to my mom or anything about the cash either. I have not heard one thing about cash.
Well,
ever.
when for the first time did you hear about cash?
When I got served. when I found out about this.
When was the first time, Miss Whitaker, that you advised anybody that there was cash in that duffel bag?
I had told my mother, and the night that she had called my mother had questioned her about the money in the bag.
Could you stand up, please? Mrs. Whitaker?
Yes.
You spoke to the defendant?
Yes.
When?
The night they had the fight.
Tell me about the conversation.
She called me, actually, to get a number out of Beth's phone that she wanted.
What did she say to you? Tell me what she said.
That's exactly what she said. Can you get a number out of the phone for me?
Whose number was it?
I don't know. I didn't ask her.
Go ahead.
And I said to her, Danielle, what happened to the money? And she launches into this big thing that she didn't even know Beth had any money, and if Beth never told her there was any money. And I said, Danielle, she's been with you for the last 3 or 4 days. You're the only one she's been with. I didn't take her to the bank, so you must have.
What did she say?
She said, well, the only thing I can think of is that I stopped at the grocery store and Beth wanted to wait in the car, and that's when she must have done it. And I said, Danielle, that doesn't make any kind of sense. And she says, well, you know, Beth hasn't been making any sense lately. She's been acting really crazy, and that's what people on drugs do. And she goes on to tell me that we can get her help and that we can get her into rehab. And I said, Danielle, what happened to the money? And Danielle said to me, well, the drug dealer must have it. And I said, well, you must have taken her to the drug dealer because I know I didn't. And then she said, well, I don't know how she got to the drug dealer. And then she says to me that she contacted Beth's boyfriend, Richard. She said that she and Richard had been friends for a long time and she wasn't going to let this come between her, you know, affect her and Richard's friendship. And she said that she called Richard and set up a 3-way conversation, and Beth didn't know that Richard was on the other line. And she said that she confronted Beth about spending the money on drugs, and she said that she just couldn't believe that Beth had spent $800 of Richard's money on drugs. And I said to her, Danielle, how did you know it was $800? And she said, because Richard told me. And I said, Danielle, Richard's in Iraq. He doesn't have a cell phone. You couldn't have called him. Then she said that her mother was trying to call her and she would call me back, and needless to say, I never heard from her again.
You still have the boyfriend in Iraq?
Yes, ma'am.
You have something you want to say to me?
Yeah. I just wanted to say, like, when she had called, I was there for the conversation, when they had the argument, she came to my house crying, that she was like, I could hear her over the line. She was screaming very loudly at her, like, you know, threatening her. It's like, you need to come back to the house so I can kick you. You know, I'm going to stab you, da-da-da. You know, she came to my house in a wreck. I mean, I couldn't believe, like, what she could probably have said to her to, like, you know,
I can't believe it either. Now you can sit down. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Did you have that conversation with Mrs. Whitaker?
Some of it, yes.
What didn't you say to her?
I don't know
It's
what
not
I
an
didn't
answer.
say to her, but I know what I did say to her. She didn't ask me about an actual amount of money. What she asked was, she told me she found some ATM.
So you knew about the, just a second. So you knew about the money, the missing money, listen to me. So you knew about the missing money the same day as it was missing.
I knew that she said she found withdrawal receipts. So I didn't know anything about the duffel bag, cash being in the duffel bag. She just told me she found withdrawal receipts and said that Beth spent some money. I had no idea there would be money at my house. There couldn't have been money at my house, because there was no conversation about that until obviously now.
No,
Her mom
there
told
was
me
a
that
conversation about it with her mother the same day that it happened. And
But
usually,
it had nothing to do-
yes, it had to do with that money.
Not with my house, though. She called me up and said that she found withdrawal receipts and she wanted to know if I knew anything about it. I told her no, that I never brought her to the bank, and that's all that I knew.
And you didn't discuss with her a 3-way conversation?
No, I don't have her boyfriend's cell phone number.
All I'm asking you is, you didn't discuss a 3-way conversation with her?
No.
No, I don't believe you.
Okay.
How's that?
That's
How's
fine.
that? Don't believe you. Okay. I'm very, very reluctant on circumstantial type evidence when other people have access to property to make a judgment that somebody took property. I'm reluctant to do that because to label somebody a thief, as far as I'm concerned, is a very serious thing. There is no question in my mind that you either took it or know who took the money out of her duffel bag. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $800. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
All right, let's go. Who would have $800 cash in a duffel bag and not come and get it for 3 weeks?
I tried to get everything back, and it was just, she just kept pulling me in circles.
Her boyfriend's away in Iraq. She was spending a lot of time stuck on the computer talking to him.
We did get into an argument about me talking to my boyfriend.
She was just spending more time on the phone with him than she was spending time with me.
I miss him.
I don't know exactly what was going on with the drugs, but if there was something going on, then, I mean, I feel sorry for her.
She's the one with the drug problem.
We were best friends.
I do feel sorry for her, though, honestly, and I hope everything works out.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Givens versus Delgado. Step forward, please.
24-year-old Jeffrey Givens is suing his former friend, 21-year-old Sierra Delgado, for a loan to put a down payment on a new apartment.
Mr. Givens, it is your claim that you made a loan to Miss Delgado in the amount of $700. She was a friend of yours. Miss Delgado says that she accepted the $700 from you because she needed some money and it was a gift. How long do you know her?
Your Honor, I have known Miss Delgado since January. I met her at Bartending Academy, and I think that the gift part of that whole story that you just gave me is an utter fabrication.
You have a copy of your check?
Yes, Your Honor. It's a copy of...
$1,000, sir. What was the $1,000 for?
Yes, Your Honor. I wanted to pull out $1,000, and she gave me $300 back. So I am suing for $700.
Tell me how it came about, sir, that you knew that she needed $700.
Your Honor, she asked me for money to help pay for her deposit on her new apartment.
When was this?
This was probably January 28th, and I gave the money to her on February 1st.
So you had known her less than a month?
Correct.
Why did you approach him about needing money?
Well, we had met at the Bartending Academy, and we had a friendship going. One night we hung out, and we had relations. After that, I told him I didn't want anything other than a friendship.
Well, when did your relationship with the plaintiff become more than just a friendship?
I would say it was just a one-night stand.
When?
This was in January, the end of January.
Give me the date.
I don't remember the date. We were drinking.
Think about it.
Oh, well, the beginning of January. I'm sorry.
You're testing my patience. Other than bartending school, what else do you do?
I work at 2 restaurants.
And you?
I am a student, Your Honor, and
Where?
I just got out of the Navy, University of San Diego.
Are you a full-time student or a part-time student?
Your Honor, I am a full-time student, biology major.
Who supports you?
I support myself, Your Honor. I was in the Navy, and I have money left over. I have loans, and the military is supporting me a little bit with the GI Bill.
Where were you in service?
I served in Japan, and I served in San Diego.
When were you in Japan?
From 2000 to 2004. And I was in San Diego from 2004 to 2006, October 23rd. That's when I got out.
Do you remember the time that you had an intimate relationship with the defendant?
Yes, Your Honor.
When was it?
It was about January 15th, because that was when Bartending Academy was going on.
And was it after that that she said she only wanted to be friends?
Correct. I did want to be in a relationship with her. She didn't want to, so I cut it off. I had a new relationship going when I gave her the money. So I thought, since I was a personal trainer as well, and I thought, since I can't be your significant other or whatever that may be, I would like to be your friend, personal trainer. I tried to help her. When I sat down with her at the Cheesecake Factory, I gave her a goal list. This was my way of a contract. This was not a contract, but I was trying to help her. I bent over backwards for this young lady.
This is my friend Veronica. She was...
How long has she been your friend?
Since junior high. She's one of the first people that I said, hey, I tell her my problems, and I would have had the money by the end of February, but the girl I was taking the contract over with said she wanted it at the beginning of the month, so I wasn't prepared for that, and I sent Mr. Givens a text message, hey, how do you get $700 in a day? Just, joking. He was a friend, and he jokingly said, stand on the corner of El Cajon Boulevard.
That's a tease.
Yeah.
Madam, you owe him $700.
I don't owe him any money.
Yes, you do!
He gave it to me as a gift.
No, he gave it to you under false pretenses.
Your Honor, I have an
I'm speaking. If you had already made a decision, Ms. Delgado, that all you wanted was a friendship, if anything, because I assumed that either you were disappointed with January 15th or you found his behavior somewhat bizarre. Either way, I don't care if you go into a homeless shelter. You don't take money from him under false pretenses, and you don't coyly send him a text message, hey, when you know that he wants more from you than you were willing to give him. How do you get $700 in a day? That you may say to your mother or your father. That you may say to your brother or your sister. That you don't say to a guy who is clearly wearing his heart on his sleeve, because that is unkind and cruel and fraudulent. You owe him $700. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. Now, this is case number 45 on the calendar in the matter of Lacey versus Rashawn.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am.
I have a complaint and I have a counterclaim. Each of you claim road rage. by the other. And Miss Lacey, you claim that the defendant assaulted you.
Yes.
The defendant denies that. So I'm used to, quite frankly, hearing about these road rage incidents with guys behind the wheel of a car. Very rarely do I see mature women who get involved with that kind of stupidity. It's very distressing. When did this happen?
March 12th of 07.
What time of the day?
3:30 p.m.
Where were you coming from or going to?
I was going to a doctor's appointment southbound on Highway 99.
Anybody in the car with you?
No.
And where were you going or coming?
I was picking up my son, going southbound on 99.
Okay, tell me what happened.
I was in the, there's a carpool lane, and then there's 3 regular lanes. Mr. Sean was a carpool because she had her daughter with her, but she was in the regular lane, and traffic was all backed up. So I was trying to get to my doctor's appointment. I rushed around her in the carpool lane and came back over real quick.
So you cut her off?
Well...
Just a second. So you cut her off?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's
okay.
what you did. Just a second. Just a second. That's exactly what you did. You cut her off.
Okay.
Now, because there is no rule that if you have more than one person in the car, you have to drive in a carpool lane. The carpool lane merely allows you to be in that lane if you're more than one person.
Correct.
But there's no requirement that you go in a carpool lane if you're 2 people.
Correct.
I question you about that, Miss Lacey, because you seem to indicate here that you were annoyed with her because she should have been in the carpool lane and not taking up space in the other 3 lanes where there was traffic. That's what you seem to indicate here.
Correct.
Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. There are tens of thousands of cars on the road. You're complaining about this lady because she didn't want to go in a fast lane with her daughter? That's ridiculous. And then you did the wrong thing. You cut her off. Now, I haven't gotten to you yet, but we will. Because I have a feeling that both of you ladies acted very badly that day. So after you cut her off, what happened?
I proceeded down southbound 99. I took the Florin Road exit and headed eastbound. There's 2 lanes on eastbound Florin. I was in the left lane, and I noticed a couple of minutes after I exited Florin Road, I noticed in my rearview mirror Miss Rashawn in the right lane, and she comes up. She's next to my car yelling at me and calling me a few names.
She's yelling at you? What is she calling you? She's calling you bad names?
She's calling me bad names.
And what did you say to her?
I didn't say anything. I was like, you know, I was trying to get to my doctor's appointment. That's all I was trying to do. And she started calling me the B word and yelling at me for cutting her off, et cetera, et cetera. And next thing I knew, her car is over in my lane, hits my car. I'm looking, and in my lane is a tan SUV, and my first thought was, this lady is going to make me hit this SUV in front of me. So I slammed on my brakes. She had so much force on my car that she ended up over in the left lane, and I took a right onto Palmer House, right here. Mm-hmm. And I came down here. Because I wasn't sure, like I said, she was extremely upset, so I was scared to stop or anything. I got on the phone, was trying to get through to 911. She kept following me, and then I lost her, and I came back, and she was parked. So I was trying to take a picture of her license plate. So when I got through to 911, I would have the license plate number. As I was focusing in on the license plate, I had my windows down. She gets out of her car, comes up to my vehicle, to the passenger side, starts screaming and yelling at me on how I hit her car, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, no, I didn't. Next thing I knew, she reaches in through the passenger side window, grabs my purse out of my car, and I was in shock. I was like, wait a minute, that's stealing, that's my purse. So I get out of my car, I go around the back of my car, and she dumps my purse and throws everything on the ground. And I go to pick it up, and she rushes me, scratches me and everything. She is just going at me. And I was in shock, and I believe, excuse my language, but I think I said, what the F, that's assault? And she goes, no, your boyfriend beats you up. I'm like, oh, is that the way we play the game? And then she continues with these 2 gentlemen came out, pulled her off of me. I asked them if they would stick around and talk to the police. They said no.
I went to pick up my belongings off of the ground, and when I went to stand back up, she pushes me. I didn't have a chance to brace myself or anything. I fell back, and my head hit the street, twisted my ankle, bruise on my right arm, everything's on the right side. Again, I get back up and start trying to retrieve my stuff again, and that's when the officer pulled up.
Okay, your version.
That was totally a lie.
Your version.
My version is, we were southbound on 99 on our way to pick up my son. We were in the carpool lane. She's tailgating me. My daughter noticed that.
Don't tell me what anybody else knows. Just tell me
Okay,
what happened from your perspective.
Okay, she went around on the shoulder to get around me. I wasn't in the number 2 lane, I was in the number 1 lane. She went around on the shoulder, started driving wildly. She was weaving in and out of traffic, got back in the carpool lane. I exited off the freeway. My daughter noticed when we were over the overpass. She said, the same car is getting off the freeway. Is that hers? I said, I don't know. So we were driving east on Florin, and then all of a sudden, I saw a car driving up fast behind me. So I moved over to the right lane, and lo and behold, bam, she crashes right into me.
Where was the damage to your car?
Got pictures right here.
Let's see it.
And you can
You have
tell.
pictures of the damage to your car?
Yes.
And she hit me.
Why don't I have any pictures of the front of either of these cars?
Because I didn't hit her. She hit me. She's claiming.
I said, why don't I have any pictures of the front of either of these cars?
Because there was no damage in the front of my car.
But if I had a picture of that, it would have been helpful.
Okay.
Because she sideswiped me, she didn't.
I did not sideswipe you.
No. This car looks to me as if this car, this is where the impact was in the
That's
front.
her tire marks.
That's where she
Her
crashed
tire
into
was-
me.
Well-
And then you can see on my picture
The
where she
dam-
stayed on my...
The damage to her car is mostly on the side.
Right.
Damage to your car, mostly over here. Okay, so she hits your car, and?
She tried to veer me to the right into a ditch. Why I had a picture of the ditch there. And then I managed to get ahead of her, so I passed the light, but she went to the right on Palmer House and tried to run from me. So I was like, she's not gonna run from me. So I ended up backing up in the street and following her down the street. And she made a U-turn in someone's driveway. I came around behind her. She backed up and just crashed right into the back of my car. You could see the dent by the gas tank there. And then she managed to drive back down the street, went into a church parking lot. She did a donut in there, and I got a picture of the marks on the ground there, if you look at the picture. And she was heading straight for me like she wanted to play chicken. So I was like, this lady has no regard for me and my daughter. And first of all, why would I even hit her with my daughter in the car?
You have a police report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to take a look at the police reports, please.
And I'm a commercial truck driver, so why would I want to ruin my driving record? That's my livelihood. I am a Class A truck driver, so I have no reason to be crashing into anybody.
You told the police that after you took the pocketbook out of her car, which you acknowledged that you did, which was the wrong thing to do, you understand that?
I understand.
That she slapped you.
Yes.
Where did she slap you?
Right here on the right side of my cheek.
And that's when you hit her?
Yes.
You have photographs of your injuries?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them, please. You hurt her pretty badly, madam. You hurt her pretty badly. That's unreasonable.
She hit me.
I'm not sure about that. No, you say she slapped you. I believe that, but you assaulted her.
She hit me first.
No, I don't believe that. Not only don't I believe it, but even if she slapped you in the face after you took her purse, she's allowed to do that.
Well, I didn't steal her purse.
Yes, you did.
I grabbed it, yes.
Yes, you did. You stole her purse. The purpose of your removing it was not to steal its contents, was to make sure that you had identifying information about her because she was leaving. You could have had the same identifying information by just taking down her license plate number. You chose not to do that. You committed a felony. You reached into her car and took her purse. You lost your temper. That's a felony.
Well, anybody would under the circumstances.
No, my dear.
Well, not stealing the purse, but I was
done
hot.
it. I would have stayed in my car until a police officer came. I would have locked my doors, rolled up my windows,
I
and
called
said,
911.
You may have called 911, but you stay in your car, especially when you have your daughter with you. You don't know what kind of nut this is. All you did was say to me, this person was driving erratically. That's what you said to me. She cut me off. She rammed my car. And instead of sitting in your car and protecting your daughter, you got out of the car and stole a pocketbook.
Actually, I got out of the car to estimate my damages, and she drove up alongside of me, started yelling at me.
So what? So further proof.
But I was away from her.
You weren't away from her. You walked up to her car and reached into her bag. You can't do that. You understand that? Yeah, good. I'm glad you understand it. And you should be more responsible if you have your child with you. Now, go ahead.
I also asked her if she was on medication, and she said she was.
It's very possible. And if she told you she was on medication, I mean, I know that you didn't ask it in a calm way, because if somebody rams your car, as she rammed your car, you're not calm. So you probably said, what are you on?
No, I asked her, are you on any medication?
And she said?
Yes, I am.
Was that before or after you assaulted her?
That was before.
You got me? In any event, you have medical bills?
I actually don't have medical bills, except for like my prescriptions, so like $60 for prescriptions.
Okay.
I also have a report from, because there's more injuries than the pictures, because when I fell, my head hit the
I'd
ground.
like to see it.
So there's
I didn't cause her to hit her head. She did that on her own.
Medical report.
And my daughter can witness to that.
I'm not going to call your daughter as a witness.
Okay.
I think you put her through quite enough. What?
Sorry. It says in the police report that there's no visual marks on her face. And she said,
No, I read that there were no visual marks. She was not injured. No, I understand that.
Okay.
I do believe, however, that you damaged her car.
Okay.
I think that you lost it, and I think that you behaved very badly that day, Miss Lacey.
Okay.
Very badly. I think that you were in a rush to get to a doctor's appointment, and you were driving erratically on the road in order to do that. You placed a lot of people's lives in jeopardy, because that's what... You practically acknowledged that in your statement, but she's not allowed to lose her temper and assault you. Now, you were banged up.
Yes.
You were banged up. I'm awarding you $3,500 in fees for your pain and suffering.
Okay.
And for your medical bills, whatever they were.
Okay.
I'm awarding her $3,500 on her counterclaim to fix her car for the damage that you caused.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
That means each of you gets nothing. That's all.
Yes, ma'am.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well, she ran into me.
You don't assault somebody.
She did road rage.
You don't grab their belongings out of their car.
When she got out of the car, hit me.
And throw them on the ground.
And then tried to gain sympathy from everybody that she's the victim.
And leave marks and welts and bruises.
And I am the perpetrator, which I'm the victim.
I was on Valium.
Don't be on drugs and commit road rage.
When she says I was on drugs, I was not on drugs. I was on Valium from 3 weeks prior. My 2 neighbors were murdered.
It's case number 50 on the calendar, the matter of Ramirez versus Flynn. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Ramirez, you and the defendant dated and, I gather, lived together for a brief period of time. You had one child with you at the time?
Yes.
And it is your claim that she, after an argument, threw you out with your child and kept your property. The defendant says that when you left, you owed her some money, and instead of the money, you said to her, just keep my stuff. I don't want it. You know, sell it. She's also counterclaiming because she says you assaulted her. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. When did you move in with Miss Flynn, Mr. Ramirez?
She moved in with me about 4 months after we met to my home that I was renting.
In what year was that you moved in together?
This year.
2007.
2005.
When was it?
2005.
And when did you move into the apartment that you left?
We moved in at the end of July of 2006.
And you have one child. How
Yes,
old is
ma'am.
that child?
She's 8.
And you have custody of her?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what happened when you left, sir.
Well, when she kicked me out, me and my daughter, she just kicked me and my daughter out.
Well, tell me about that day.
Well, we were talking, and I have an invention.
You have an invention?
Yes, ma'am, that me and my brother came up with. And Miss Flynn stated that she wanted 10% of something that doesn't exist. And I said, no, how am I going to give you 10% of something I don't even have? So that's where it started, and that upset her, like, just totally upset her. And she said, what? And I said, how am I going to give you 10% of something I don't even have? I can't.
What do you mean you don't even have? You had an invention you just told
Well,
me.
yes, ma'am, but it's just in the process now. I haven't.
Well, I assume that what she was saying is that in exchange for whatever financial contribution she was making, were you working at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
You were both working?
Yes.
Well, I assume she was saying that because you lived together as a couple, she wanted 10% if anything happens with this invention. And you said, no, I don't think you're entitled to that. So you're entitled to say that to her, Mr. Ramirez. If she wants 10% or 50%, then you got to get married. Then that's what the state does. The state says, well, then property becomes community property or joint property. But you're not married, she's not entitled to anything. So you're absolutely within your rights to say, I don't want to give you 10%. Is that when she threw you out?
Yes, ma'am.
What did she say?
Get out of my house. You and your daughter can get out of my house.
And is that what you did? You left?
Yes, ma'am.
And you left your things?
Yes, ma'am.
What things did you leave there?
I have a list of things, numerous things.
They better be big items, sir, because I don't get involved with saucepans and dishes.
That's just some of the things. That's not the personal belongings, like pictures and...
I'm going to cross certain things out here, Mr. Ramirez, that I think are ridiculous. Charbroiled barbecue with 2 propane tanks. Prairie dining. Did you purchase all of these things, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you purchase them while you and the defendant were living together?
No, ma'am. Prior.
You had these things?
Everything on that list is prior to our relationship.
Let us take a look at this. Are any of those things that you purchased while you were living together?
Probably some DVDs and CDs.
Other than that, those are all his things, correct?
Yeah.
You have to return them to him, all of them. Do you understand?
Oh, there's no neon picture.
Okay, cross it off.
There is a neon picture, Your Honor.
Cross it off. Okay, good. Inconsequential, all of those things within 5 days, sir. You arranged to have the movers there to pick them up. Isn't that nice?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Now, let's get to your counterclaim. You say he owes you money.
Yes.
And he assaulted you. Go.
Actually, the alleged invention that he has is something that my doctor asked him to make, and I actually have a picture of it.
What does that have to do with anything?
That's why I had asked him for 10% of his alleged
You're entitled
invention.
to ask.
So
he's entitled to say no.
My counterclaim is what he owes me when he was not working for October, November, and December.
You were not working October, November, December?
October and November, Your Honor.
And December. Well,
just a second. Were you working in December, sir?
No, ma'am.
So you didn't contribute to the household for those 3 months?
No.
So how much money do you owe her?
I don't feel I owe her anything.
Why not?
That's the way relationships work, Your Honor.
Why? Did she work all the time?
No, she doesn't work.
She doesn't work at all?
No.
How do you support yourself?
I received disability and Social Security.
What's the nature of your disability?
I have a blood condition that affects my ankles to where I get a lot of blood clots, and I'm in the hospital a lot. I get a lot of infections.
So you were supporting the household and paying the mortgage on your Social Security disability?
And child support.
You have children?
I have 1 child.
How old?
9. Also,
Just a second. Was your arrangement when you moved in that you would pay half the mortgage, sir?
No, ma'am.
What was your arrangement?
Just that we're going to move in together and help each other out as a relationship does.
No. How did you handle the finances, Mr. Ramirez?
Well, I was working prior, and then I just...
When you were working prior, how did you handle the finances?
We just share them.
How did it work? You came home and you all both deposited checks into a joint account?
No, ma'am.
Well, how did it work? I want to know.
I would hand her cash and to pay the bills.
How much?
It just depended on how much the bills were at the time.
Mr. Ramirez?
Yes.
How much would you hand her each month?
Maybe $1,200.
Each month?
No, not each month.
Well, that's
When
what
I
I'm
could.
asking you, sir. You don't play with me, Mr. Ramirez.
Yes.
You think you're smarter than I am?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Ramirez, you owe her $1,800. What else?
He also owes me for his vehicle insurance from May to January, which I do have invoices for.
Just a second. Why did you pay in May? He was working in May.
Because I had added him to my insurance because he couldn't get it on his own. And with the money that he was giving
No, my
me-
darling. Listen to me. In May, he was working, so he was giving you money. In May, June, July, August, he was working. He was giving you money.
Not
you
enough.
Paid who cares? That's not something I'm getting involved with. So far, he owes you $1,800, period.
Okay.
What's next?
So he owes me then $120 for vehicle insurance for October, November, and December, ma'am, when he was not working.
October, November, and December. You had a car?
Yes, ma'am.
She was paying the insurance?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. And you weren't paying
Helping.
anything?
And
But-
January.
Yeah.
Just You weren't paying anything?
Not a penny.
Okay. How much a month?
$40 a month.
Okay. So it was 3 months or 4 months?
4.
160. What's next?
The satellite dish was a household bill.
Forget it. You still have the satellite dish, no?
I still have it.
Keep going.
I'm also countersuing for the assault.
Well, let me hear about the assault.
Okay. One night I was just in my house, in my room with my friend.
When?
Approximately the 14th of January.
After he had left?
After he had left. He came back into my house. He still had a key because his stuff was there, so I didn't change the locks. I changed my alarm code. I thought that was good enough. He came in anyhow. I had my room closed. When I opened my bedroom door to see who had come in, he was already right there. And he asked me,
what were you doing there?
I went to pack my daughter's things in her room so I can...
Did you call her first?
No.
Why not?
I have a key.
You have no right to do that. You're not a tenant there. You hadn't paid rent. You have no right to go in.
When I received my first check, after I got my job, I handed her my first check.
No.
What date?
You didn't.
What date?
Like January, first week of February.
You mean after you moved out, you handed her a check?
No, Your Honor.
Baloney, Mr. Ramirez. Baloney. You had no right being there. None. So what happened?
He said, who's in there? And I told him, none of your business. He pushed the door open like this, and the door hit me in my face because I was on the other side of the door. I proceeded to push the door and tell him that he wasn't going to come in, that it was none of his business. And with his strength, he pushed me into a dresser that I had by the door, which bruised my arm.
Why did you do that, sir?
I have pictures of my lip where the door busted my lip.
Can I see it, please?
And my witness was in my room. When he saw that it was just my friend Diana, he left. I told him I was calling the police. I had the police on the phone, and
Temper, Mr.
I also
Ramirez.
have a statement from
Temper, Mr. Ramirez. Ever been arrested?
Yes.
Domestic violence?
Yes.
What do you have to say for yourself, sir? There's no question in my mind that you entered the house, that was a trespass, and if you assaulted her, that rises to the level of burglary. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now, I want you to tell me, did you lose your temper?
No, Your Honor.
Well, tell me what you did. There's no question that you hurt her.
I entered the room, the house, and intend to gather my daughter's things from her room and some of my belongings. And then she came out. She said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "Get out of my house." I handed her the key, and I left.
No. Didn't push the door open?
No, Your Honor.
Didn't push the door?
No.
Didn't cut her lip?
No.
You have a police report?
No, ma'am, I didn't let the police come. So, but he was not there to get his daughter things. He called me later after he left and said, "Why did you do that?" "I just wanted to sit down and hang out with you and talk. I thought we could talk." And I said, "Why would you think that?"
He doesn't think that you're allowed to say no.
Well, I am saying no.
Yes.
And
I think maybe he gets that now. Want to step up? Tell me your last name.
Kalish.
Ms. Kalish, you were there on the evening that Mr. Ramirez came into the house?
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
We were in her room just watching TV, and we heard the front door open. She got up to see who entered the house, and before she got to the door, he was already standing there. She opened the door, and he pushed the door open and pushed her.
Did you say anything about calling the police?
She did call the police. I was there. She
And what
called
happened?
the police, telling them that he had came in the house without permission, but the police didn't show up.
They never showed up?
Well, she didn't want them to come over.
Why?
The calls can take an hour to 2 or 3 hours, and I didn't want to waste their time. He was already gone. I felt safe in the house, and I knew that I could just call back.
Why is this picture dated February 9th?
Because that's when I printed the picture, and my digital camera, once I changed the batteries, the date doesn't set. So I have a digital camera. I have the camera with me. I didn't print the photos.
Did you seek any medical treatment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You owe her $1,960. Do you understand? And you can go pick up your stuff within 5 days, the stuff that's on this list. Don't go back and bother her anymore. She doesn't want to have anything to do with you anymore. Do you understand?
It's mutual.
It's finished. Over. Got it?
Mutual.
Thank you. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He messed up. I mean, he had a good relationship. He had a really good thing. And he doesn't have it anymore.
She kicked us out into the snow, actually, where we didn't have no vehicle, no money, no cell phone.
It wasn't snowing.
Me and my daughter had to ride our bike over a mile to the gas station so I can call somebody to pick us up.
They didn't go out to the street. I mean, he went to his brother's house.
She's just a mean person.
He chose to make out of himself while his daughter was there.
I told her I didn't love her unconditionally, and she just went ballistic.
I don't feel bad about that at all.
She can move on, and I can move on, and go on with their lives.
I hope so.
Homemaker Patricia Height is suing physical therapist Sylvia Schuler for hitting her in the face during an argument in a restaurant. Sylvia says Patricia was harassing her while she was breastfeeding her baby.
Now, this is case number 110 on the calendar in the matter of Height versus Schuler. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats, please.
Ms. Height, it is your claim that the defendant assaulted you in a restaurant.
Correct.
You are suing her for damages, not so much for the injury that you sustained, because she, according to you, hit you in the face, but for the emotional distress that you suffered. You didn't have any medical bills, did you?
A few.
Ms. Schuler said that she did, in fact, strike you, but that is only after you lunged at her. So tell me when this happened and what precipitated this altercation.
On December 27th last year, my husband's relatives were in from out of town, and we went out to eat some Mexican food. We were sitting in a crowded lobby. I had a party of 12, 7 children and 5 adults. And I was sitting talking to my husband's aunt, and this woman walked in and plopped herself down on the bench next to us and proceeded to lift up her sweater and put this child at her breast. And I sat there for a minute and trying to talk to my husband's aunt, and I eventually said, you know, I really don't think this is the proper place to be doing that in a crowded restaurant lobby. And she said, mind your own business, and I'll do whatever I want, and if you don't like it, don't look. So I looked at my husband's aunt, and we opened our eyes kind of wide at one another. And I said, well, at least you could take this to the restroom. And she said, I'm not going in that restroom. It's filthy.
So you kept on going back and forth after she cursed at you? Are you telling me you said something else to her?
Well, I did. I said, you know, at least you could go and excuse yourself to the restroom. And she says, I'm not going in that restroom. It's filthy in there. That shows what kind of a mother you'd be. And I said, lady, I gave birth to 4 children, all of which I breastfed. But when I did it in a discreet manner and never in a public forum like this. And at that time, the hostess came up and told us our table was ready. And I got up, and I had forgotten to pick my bag up off the floor. And when I turned around to pick up my bag, she came up out of her chair and hit me across the side of the face.
Did you sit down and have dinner?
No, we didn't.
You left?
Correct.
Where did you go?
Outside. My husband had asked the manager to call the police, and he said, if you want to call the police, take your business outside. So we did.
And did you call the police?
Yes.
You have a police report?
Yes.
I'd like to see it, please. What kind of medical attention did you require?
The next morning on Sunday, I went and saw my primary physician, and he checked out my face, and the next day I went and had an x-ray of my jaw.
It was okay?
It's okay. I was in a lot of pain for about 2 weeks, and my jaw, after she hit me, my jaw, it didn't sit right on my face, and I'm telling my husband, this woman just hit me, and I was holding this side of my face because it hurt more over here for some reason. My doctor told me it was a whiplash effect. And she looked up at me from her bench and said, what the hell are you holding that side of your face for? I hit you on the other side.
All right, Ms. Schuler, let me hear your version of the events.
Okay.
How old is your baby?
My baby at the time had just turned a year old. She was probably approaching 14 months. And I had my 3-year-old son as well.
Okay. Tell me what happened at the Mexican restaurant on the 27th.
It's ironic. We had a choice of like 6 places. We chose this place. We went in, and the lobby was just packed. I went up to the hostess, and I said, how long of a wait do you think it is? And she said, 5 minutes. I said, oh, that's great, because my kids aren't going to be able to wait very long. And I turned around to tell my husband, and as she said,
which is the husband?
My husband is. And as she told me that, the plaintiff's husband was sitting where I eventually sat, and he said, you've sat 40 people since we've been here. And I thought he was yelling at me, so I just kind of noticed that he said that and, you know, just made a mental note, told my husband, It's only going to be 5 minutes. We can do this. And the plaintiff's husband had stood up and demanded to see the manager because he felt they were waiting too long. And he left his seat. So I sat down in his seat. And I started to breastfeed Aubrey because she started to kind of squawk, and we don't like our kids to cause disturbance in public. So started to nurse her very carefully. However, when I started...
Tell me what you mean very carefully.
I always am very careful not to be real obvious. I had on a thick, heavy cotton beige sweater. And I get my bra down so that it's ready, and then I get her right up to me, and then I make sure the sweater was kind of nuzzled around her face. And I'll tell you how discreet it was in a second. But when I began breastfeeding her, they were talking to the manager. And he told them, he said, yes, we had to clean the tables. And the plaintiff says to him, and I'm sitting here, I don't have anything to do, so I'm obviously listening. And she says, well, what did you have to do? Take them out back and refinish them? And I just thought, oh, these people are really mad, because that was the second comment I heard. So the man sitting next to me, eventually I found out was in her party. But my daughter was kind of flicking her leg like this, and it kind of got his attention. So he leaned way over into my space and said, hi, honey, what's your name? And she kind of waved at him, but never came off the breast. I had my sweater around. He went back to his seat. I didn't want to embarrass him and say, excuse me, sir, but I'm breastfeeding, you know. I just wanted it just to go. Then she says, well, sure, just whip it out in front of the whole lobby. And she didn't see me whip anything out because I had been breastfeeding for some time. And the poor man says, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even know she was nursing.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
When she raised her sweater, she exposed her breast.
She got so close, she was this close, and I slapped her while I was sitting and breastfeeding my daughter. I didn't know what. I was afraid.
Sticks and stones, but you can't use
But I didn't even
force.
have sticks and stones.
Sylvia Schuler hit her in the face. Sylvia says Patricia was harassing her because she was breastfeeding her baby in a restaurant.
Go ahead.
So she says another few comments like you should go to the bathroom. And I finally said, excuse me, ma'am, but you are extremely rude. Because I'd seen her being rude to everyone, and now she was being rude to me. And I did have a dialogue with her. I'm sorry, I don't use words like okay, or I don't talk like that. That's not in my vocabulary. I'm not saying I've never cursed, but I don't curse to people I don't know, most definitely. And she said I should go to the bathroom, and I said, where would you like me to sit in the bathroom? On the toilet? I can't nurse my child on the toilet. And I said, there's really nowhere to nurse. I said, I guess you don't believe in nursing. And she said, I nursed 5 children, but I was much more discreet. And I asked her, I said, well, what can you see? And she just rolled her eyes. She couldn't see anything. So my husband says to her husband, you know, I'm sorry if my wife's breastfeeding is offending you, but she does have the right to feed my daughter wherever she would like. I'm not sure of all their dialogue because they were over there. She kept at me. And so my husband turned and said to her, he said, excuse me, ma'am, but if it offends you, look away. And that's when her husband reeled around and said, you don't talk to my wife that way, and I'm going to kick your effing ASS. And then that went on, and I'm just kind of watching going, oh no. And I'm getting very worried, what's going to happen?
It was getting out of hand.
It was. And so the manager...
Who's the manager?
This is the manager of the restaurant.
Come up here. Tell me your name.
Peter Holder.
Did you observe this incident?
Parts of it.
Did you observe when Miss Schuler hit Mrs. Height?
No.
If you didn't observe this assault, why are you here?
To help shed some light on the disposition and the nature of the plaintiffs and how aggressive they were.
I'd like to hear that. Go ahead.
Rarely do you have I encountered somebody as hostile and aggressive as this.
Who?
The plaintiffs. They when they came in, we told them it would be about 20 minutes, and for a table, it takes you have to put a certain number of tables together for 12 people.
Did they have a reservation?
No.
Okay. So you told them it would be about 20 minutes.
Yes. And 10 minutes later, the hostess came and got me. I was back in the kitchen and said, this man would like to see the manager. He's very upset. So I went out and, how can I help you? And he says, you're seating all these people ahead of us. We've been here way past 20 minutes. It had been 10 minutes. And I said, well, a lot of our tables only hold 2 and 4 people, and that's who we're seating. We have a place all picked out for you, waiting for one more party to leave. And that's when Patricia, I believe her name is, said...
Mrs. Height.
Mrs. Height said, what do you have to do, take them out and revarnish them? And I went, whoa. And right after the incident, the plaintiff's husband threatened using that language him again, and that's when I asked him to leave.
What did you hear?
I should kick you.
So they were angry?
Very.
Okay, have a seat. All right, Ms. Schuler, tell me what happened after Mr. and Mrs. Height's name was called and indicated that their table was ready.
I believe what got her so angry was that her friend sitting next to me was apologizing profusely, saying, and I didn't realize he was with them until this. And he said, I'm so sorry, and I don't know what's going on with them, and I don't know why they're acting like this. And I said, do you know those people? And he was saying yes, and then their table got called. So he was apologizing to me. I was talking to him. The plaintiff and the aunt stood up. The aunt passed. The plaintiff came over to us and said to him, stand up. You don't need to apologize to her. And as he passed me, she lunged at me and said, he didn't come here to see the likes of you. And she got so close. She was this close, and I slapped her while I was sitting and breastfeeding my daughter, still breastfeeding, and I slapped her because she came so close. I didn't know what. I was afraid.
Well, you know that you can't do that.
I really didn't. I swear to God. I will swear to God, I did not know I couldn't defend myself.
Well, I don't think that is a question of defending yourself.
Well,
but, you know, you can't use sticks and stones, but you can't use
But I didn't
physical
even
force.
have sticks and stones.
Miss Schuler, you know exactly what I'm saying to you, madam. Don't be a passive-aggressive with me.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Patricia Height says fellow restaurant patron Sylvia Schuler hit her in the face.
I mean, if you saw a man sitting there and scratching himself because he had an itch, would you have the gall to say to him, can't you do that someplace else? Can't you go into the bathroom? Why don't you go do that in the car? You wouldn't say that to him.
Well,
you wouldn't say that to him. What you would do is you would take your children, if you believed it was offensive, and you would go outside. You would say, I can't believe that guy can't be more discreet about scratching himself.
Well, when she raised her sweater, she exposed her breast, and that's what I had a problem with in a public place.
And I want to tell you something. I don't necessarily believe that that's true. I believe that that's a convenient thing for you to say now, and I don't believe that she cursed at you, Ms. Height. I do not believe that you said to her very sweetly, could you please do that, or don't you think you could do that someplace a little more discreetly? And she turned around and called you the names that you attribute to her a moment ago. I don't believe that that happened.
Can I let my husband testify?
Oh, you can, but I won't believe him either. I don't believe she said that to you.
She did.
No, I don't believe she said that to you. I believe that you kept going back and forth because it would make sense if she said, this is what I'm going to do, and then you came back to her and said to her, can't you just go to the restroom? Because if somebody came back and cursed at me like that, I would say if I were a normal person, gee, this person's a little bit off, I'm not going to have anything else to do with her. But you didn't do that. You came right back and you said to her, according to you, after she cursed at you in a vile way, you said to her, calmly, you could at least go into the restroom. That's not what I'm hearing from the manager of the restaurant that was your demeanor on that day.
He didn't.
Now, that doesn't mean, madam, that you have the right to put your hands on her. You don't. She has absolutely no right to tell you that you can't breastfeed a child, which is a perfectly natural thing. Some people prefer to do it privately. They feel as if for everybody's sake, including the child's sake, the child who's 14 months old, perhaps we could do this privately. I can go out into the car. I can go into a private corner. I don't have to be in the middle of a lobby with 50 people around me and breastfeeding my child. But that's your prerogative. You know, you say it's a natural occurrence. It is a natural occurrence, and you can do it. There are lots of things that are natural that you don't necessarily do, you know, in the middle of Times Square. However, you understand what I'm saying to you?
I do.
I'm not being judgmental.
I'm
not being at the risk of offending the La Leches. I did not breastfeed my children. They grew up just fine. My generation didn't do that. But all my children and their children have all been breastfed, and they whip it out just around any when they want.
I'm just trying to get over.
Well, you're just trying.
I'm just trying to get over. I'm not being judgmental.
Well, it's not your prerogative to tell her what to do. And I don't believe that you were hurt either. I believe she slapped you and your pride was hurt. But you can't hurt her. Now, I'm going to get to your counterclaim, because I think that your counterclaim is also a little bit of nonsense, but I'm prepared to hear it.
Okay.
It's for emotional distress.
Well, I have expenses. That's all I'm asking for.
What expenses?
I had a lot of consultation with an attorney because I was supposed to be arraigned on March 5th.
Yes.
I was arrested.
She made a citizen's arrest because you assaulted her.
Exactly. So I was very concerned. I was a nervous wreck. I've never had any legal problems in my life.
Should have kept your hands to yourself.
May I ask you a question? Because I'm very interested in the answer to this question.
Sure.
How close can someone get to you aggressively? How close can an aggressor get before you have the right to protect yourself?
Where was your husband when all this was going on?
Watching my 3-year-old, who is very active.
Is what you're telling me that you were fighting back and forth with this lady and things had gotten so aggressive that she was cursing you, she was screaming at you, your husband got involved, you got involved with your husband, and yet your husband left you to go watch your 3-year-old? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Yeah. You put your hands on her. She has the right to make a citizen's arrest. So if that's the expense that you want because you consulted with an attorney, I'm going to deny that application.
Okay.
And I think that she had no right to put her hands on you, and you have to be compensated for that. But you have to be compensated commensurate with the damage. If you had it to do all over again, would you have moved your seat?
Well, she had only sat down like 5 minutes before. And
would you have moved your seat instead of starting in with her?
No, I probably wouldn't have.
Well, then you got a problem. You're not supposed to look for confrontation. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to try to avoid confrontation if you can. You know, life is short. You're out having a good time, you're out having dinner, you're waiting for a table. There are 12 of you. According to you, 7 children and 4 adults. You're out to have a good time. Why would you want to start anything that's going to put a damper on that good time?
I didn't think that it would. I didn't think that just kindly asking someone to take that into another part of the restaurant or outside would have caused so much her to become so angry.
Well, just a second. But she responded to you, and she said it's none of your business. Right? Let's say I agree. Let's say that that's what she said to you. It's none of your business. Let's say she used all the expletives. Then why did you continue the conversation with her?
Well, I was sitting with my husband's 70-year-old aunt and uncle.
Your 70-year-old aunt and uncle didn't complain. You did. All right, I think you're entitled to be compensated. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $10. That's all. Counterclaims dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Guys, case number 123 on the calendar in the matter of Mance versus Leaf. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat, please.
How old are you, Miss Mance?
I'm 19.
How old were you when you met the defendant?
I was 17.
You were in high school?
Yes, I was a senior in high school.
And what was he?
He was the assistant swim coach on my high school swim team.
When did you start to date him romantically?
We started dating maybe 3 days after the season ended. That was in February of 2002.
You were 17?
Yes.
How old were you?
24 at the time.
Married or single?
Single.
Had been married?
No.
Any children?
No.
According to your complaint, he had some trouble making ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of your relationship, you loaned him money.
Yes.
Substantial amount of money.
Yes.
Mr. Leith says that, well, he did have some hard times there financially. The money that you gave him was just that gifts. You agreed to help him out. And because he's a good guy, he gave you back $2,400. And he says, according to him, let me quote his answer, he said, I didn't want to seem as if I was a charity case, so I paid her a total of $2,400 to make her feel better, and I can prove it. That's what you said here.
Yes.
A lie.
Prove. Shh. I'm going to cut to the chase right now.
Okay.
Miss Mance, you have a whole laundry list of money that you lent him over the years. Is that right?
Yes.
You say he gave you back $1,000, but he still owes you about $3,000.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you this. If he can prove to me what he says in his answer, that he paid you back $2,400, if he can prove to me, listen to my question, if he can prove to me that he paid you back $2,400, are you prepared to say, that's fine, that's...
No.
Oh, that's too bad. Prove to me that you paid her back $2,400.
I don't have any evidence of any kind.
Well, if you don't have any evidence, you see where I'm going?
I see where you're going.
See where I'm going?
The only evidence that we have is a title of a car that was signed over from my name to her name, which is a car that I purchased for her.
For $200.
Shh.
I purchased the car for $400 from a friend. We signed $200 on the title because it made tax reasons easier. When I put $600 worth of work into it, which her father actually helped me do the work in a friend of his shop, and we had $600 in total parts, including seat covers, wheel covers, and things that I needed to get the engine running properly again, which the car was destroyed a week or so after she started driving it because something that wasn't fixed properly ended up blowing up inside and destroyed the motor. I also gave her $1,400 in cash in total payments, and that was...
Show me from the bank from which you drew out...
I paid everything in cash.
Listen to my mouth. Are you a bookie?
No.
You have a job?
Yes.
You have a checking account?
No.
You put money in a bank or under the mattress?
Under the mattress.
You put it under the mattress. You're slick, but I don't believe you. Do you understand?
Yes.
Nobody does that. You put money in a bank, especially $1,400, you would have some evidence that you withdrew $1,400 from a bank. Not necessarily a check. Not everybody has a checking account, but most people who are college educated have a checking account.
Your Honor, at one point he did have a checking account.
Just a second. Do I look like I need help from you yet?
No.
Who is this?
This is one of my friends. His name is Chip. He's a witness that 2 of the times I did pay her cash, they were $200 each time, so he's a witness to $400 of the money that was paid back.
Good. Perfect. I don't even have to hear him. She says that you paid her back $1,000. You could have had 2 more chips. $2,400, sir. Get there. So far, let us assume that I believe you, which I do not, that we have $400 from Chipper over here. And you have $600 in parts for a car.
Which my father paid for.
Just a second. $2,400, sir. Get there.
I already told you, man. $1,000 in total for the car, and then $1,400 in cash payments made to her.
When?
During the course, it was probably over a course of a year, because she loaned me money when I first got diagnosed with a disease, Crohn's disease. I was out of work for a while, and then when I got back to work, I took a dive off of a ladder and had a fractured spine at one point.
You're an accident looking to happen.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't you have family?
No. Well, family, yes. It's my father and my mother and everybody, but...
Well, father and mother usually comprise family. Right, Chip?
I agree, ma'am.
That's where you go if you have the propensity to fall off ladders. You go to your parents. You don't go to your 17-year-old girlfriend.
Well, she was 18 at that time.
Oh, my goodness. Eligible for Social Security, and you were 25. Father?
Yes, ma'am.
Happy with him?
Not really.
Oh, I could tell.
My ex-wife is even less happy, and I had to keep him out of jail. She wanted to put him there.
He was forbidden from entering my mother's house, where I was living at the time.
When you were how old?
17.
17, 18.
Is there any particular reason why he was forbidden from entering your house?
I wasn't forbidden from her father's house.
No. I understand that.
My mother was very upset because he was so much older than me, and she found out that I had been giving him money, which upset her even more. And
Where'd you get the money from?
I worked. I have a copy of my W-2 here. I worked full-time during the summertime, and I took a semester off school, and I worked.
She made very good money that year. Unfortunately, she doesn't have it.
Yes.
And I get very few phone calls, if I may interrupt, from my ex-wife. One of them was about this situation after she had heard about it, because it was in the closet for some time. And the words that came out of her mouth were statutory. And that's what she wanted to pursue. And I talked her out of that.
That's hard to do anyway.
Yes.
Because at the time, what's your first name?
Maureen.
Maureen. At the time, Maureen was in love.
Yes.
I
didn't want to push them apart, her mother and herself. I figured
Smart idea.
that would end up in the wrong
Smart.
direction. Thank you.
Wouldn't have gone anywhere anyway.
No.
You need somebody to testify, right?
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
The day that we went to Sausalito, Eric was rubbing my shoulders in front of the guy that we were buying product from.
I don't care, and neither does he.
As long as they're not my shoulders.
Well, I don't care about rubbing shoulders. Go someplace else if you want to talk about rubbing shoulders.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Maureen Mantz says ex-boyfriend Greg Leaf owes for unpaid loans. Maureen says she started dating Greg when he was her high school swim coach, and she was just 17.
Okay, so far you have not convinced me that you gave her $2,400.
The title.
I see you
signed
there
over.
without any evidence.
The only evidence I would have had would have been the title of the car.
Except
which I
Chipper over
signed
here. And Chipper doesn't want to fall in my mouth again, do you, Chipper?
No, ma'am.
I will also say, Your Honor, that she did not loan me nearly the amount, and none of it was supposed to be a loan. She had told me during the course of this relationship that she was helping me out because we were together and because we were in a relationship.
I know.
And it was only
Just
after we
listen
broke
to-
up.
Listen to me, sir.
Yes.
A 17-year-old cannot make a contract with you.
None of the money was ever borrowed or any money that she ever spent was until after she had turned 18, so she would have been a legal adult at that time.
Which was only a few months later.
You got it? Do you just love that man? Listen to me. Maureen, really good lesson.
Hard.
Hard
Very
lesson.
hard.
Over the course of 2 years, you gave him a whole lot of money. Now, ordinarily, I would dismiss your lawsuit because you have no evidence of a loan. You loved him. But he says he paid you back. That's his problem. And he can't prove it because he has no evidence. So what he wants me to do is believe a 25-year-old, because at that time he was 25, because you've turned 18, eventually he turned 25,
Right.
that a 25-year-old man took money from an 18-year-old girl, and he wants me to believe that this 25-year-old man had no bank account, no checking account, kept his money under his mattress.
When he had it.
When he had it. So I find that hard to believe, Mr. Leaf. Do you understand?
Yes.
Is your Crohn's disease under control?
Yes, it is.
Oh, how wonderful for you. And you working full-time?
Yes, ma'am.
And you haven't fallen off any ladders lately?
No, ma'am.
Very good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,400, which is the amount you say you paid her back but can't prove. Maureen, be grateful.
I am. Thank you very much.
That's all.
Thank you, Ron.
Eyes are excused. You may step out.
In the beginning of our relationship, he wrote me letters telling him how much he loved me and how much he couldn't wait to spend his life with me.
We had both written letters to each other, and I wouldn't consider them to be romantic love letters.
I was young, I was naive, and it was a hard lesson.
Step forward.
23-year-old Erin King is suing her former roommate, 21-year-old Avian Moses, for stopping payment on a rent check. Avian claims Erin kicked her out after 2 weeks of living together.
Ms. King, the defendant was your roommate for a short period of time. It is your claim that she moved out after an argument that you had and she put a stop payment on her rent check.
Yes.
You want your rent.
Right.
And the defendant says that you kicked her out of the apartment and therefore she doesn't have to pay you any rent. Ms. Moses, you moved into Ms. King's apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
I moved in approximately August the 4th, I believe, around the beginning of August.
Was it August 4th?
August 5th.
And you knew each other before?
Yes, we did.
Through college.
What was the rental arrangement?
The rental arrangement was that we would both split the rent equally, $305, including utilities. She was supposed to pay me on the 3rd of each month.
So far, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When did she move out?
She moved out November the 14th.
Had she paid you November's rent?
Well, she wrote me a check when I went to the bank to cash it.
That's the rent check that she stopped paying.
Right, and I have that as
Okay.
well.
So that was November 14th. So far you were in the apartment from November the 3rd to November the 14th.
Yes.
So you should have paid rent.
Yes.
On what date did you give her the rent?
Probably the 7th. It was after the time that I was supposed to give it to her. Oh, yes, ma'am, the 7th.
Why were you late with your rent?
Well, a week before that, my purse had gotten stolen, and I didn't have a bank card. I had to change all my accounts, and during this time when I was changing the numbers and all, getting everything straight, I informed Erin of this. I said, I don't have a checkbook, I don't have a bank card. I said, can I just pay you next week once my accounts are in order? She said, yes, no problem. I said, I will pay you a late fee. She said, okay, no problem, and I did so.
You paid her the rent?
Yes, and a late
Which
fee.
you owed her? Yes. And the late fee?
Yes.
Now, why did you stop payment on the check?
Me and Aaron had been having problems living together for about a month. She was in an abusive relationship. It was constant fighting in the apartment. Her boyfriend would come over, get high, smoke weed, hit on me. She'd leave him in there. She gave him a key to the apartment. She would constantly fight with me over food, saying I was stealing from her. We got into a physical altercation, and I decided this was the last straw. She screamed at me. My name was not on the lease, and to get out of her house. So I said, gladly, I'll stop paying my rent check, and I'll leave your house immediately.
Well, you can't do that. A, you didn't tell her you were stopping payment on the rent check.
I did tell her I was stopping payment on my rent check.
Really? No.
She
You didn't
called
even
me.
say that in your answer, that you told her you would
She
leave
called
immediately.
me that same day, and I told her I was stopping payment on my rent check, and I was moving out.
You may have told her that after she called you on the phone, but when you had the argument with her in the house...
No, she told me to leave. She told me this was her apartment and to leave.
On the phone or in person?
No, when we had our physical altercation.
I understand that. You're not putting on your listening ears.
I'm sorry.
At the time you had this altercation and this argument, you did not say to her, I'm putting a stop payment on the rent check. According to you, you told her over the phone that you were putting a stop payment on the rent.
I apologize for not mentioning that, but I did tell her at the point when we were after the physical altercation, the police that came, I told her that I was leaving and I was stopping payment on my rent check.
Well, you can't.
Okay.
You can't. Unless, of course, she changed the locks.
Yes, that's exactly what she did.
When did you change the locks?
I changed the locks on the 14th. That was because she had been going through my belongings. She had actually stole from...
Just a second. You can't change the locks and ask for rent at the same time.
Well, I actually changed the locks after she did the stop payment on the check. After they gave me the check back from the bank, I went to the bank on the 11th. They told me at the bank I need to take this check back to Ms. Moses. They couldn't tell me why because it was concerning her account. After I left the bank, I said, Avian, I just left the bank. They gave me the check. She said, I'm not paying you anything. I'm moving out.
That's not correct.
And so after that, I later discovered that she had been in my room while I was out of the apartment.
Ms. King, can't have it both ways. If you change the locks on the apartment, making it impossible for her to come back to the apartment, you can't charge her for rent for the entire month.
She did come back to the apartment. After we got into the argument on that Sunday, the police came.
Who called the police?
She did. Even though she started the altercation, she was threatening me with an alcohol bottle, saying that she was going to hit me upside my head with it. While the police was there, I said, it's fine. She can stay, for the next 3 weeks. It won't be any problems. She left that Sunday. She actually came back that Monday and spent the night, even after she told me that she was moving out, and she had started to move her stuff out.
When did she finally move the last bit of property out of the house?
She didn't finish moving out because after I had the locks changed, I called her and I let her know that I had the locks changed and to call me and make arrangements to get the rest of her belongings. I guess she was angry because I had the locks changed, and she said, well, you're stealing my property. She was with her mother. I said, no, you can come in and get your stuff. I even gave her mother a futon cover that was in the living room and a financial aid paper. I guess, it has her financial information. I kept telling them, please come in and get the rest of your stuff. I even, gave them that. I wasn't...
When did she take it out, or did she still
not? She left after I gave her mother the futon cover and the Norfolk State financial aid booklet. They said, we don't want the rest of the stuff. We're leaving, and they left it. And so she left a bed, a dresser,
Did you leave a bed and a dresser there?
Yes.
Ma'am, yes, I did, because she wouldn't allow me to get it. She changed the locks.
Listen to me. You didn't sue her, did you, for your stuff?
Yes, I did. The court ordered her to give it back to me, and I didn't get it back until January the 1st of 2007.
Oh, so you did sue her. This is not the first time you've been in small claims court.
No, ma'am.
Really? I got it. Ms. King, you're only entitled to half a month's rent. Change the locks, but you're entitled to half a month's rent. $150, $250.
Okay.
Right? That's what your half a month's rent is.
Yes.
And that's what you offered to pay her.
Yes, I did. She said she didn't want it.
$150, absolutely right. That's all. Judgment for the plaintiff.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm happy with the judgment.
I'm just happy that she got her $250.
Is suing her former friend, Micah Sandoval, for the unpaid balance on a Ford Taurus. Micah says she paid her back with free babysitting.
All rise. Yeah, this is case number 557 on the calendar in the matter of Baker versus Sandoval. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat, please.
Miss Baker, were you and Miss Sandoval friends?
Yes.
Before you sold her this car?
Yes, we were.
Do you ever watch my courtroom program?
Yes, I do.
Didn't you ever hear me say never sell a used car to a friend?
Yes, ma'am.
But you didn't listen. You didn't take me seriously.
No, I'm sorry.
You're never supposed to sell a used car to a friend and never make a loan to a friend, because that's the fastest way to lose a friend. You always end up enemies, and you're the bad one when you try to collect the debt. Okay, so you sold the car to Miss Sandoval. How much was the car?
$3,800.
You have a bill of sale?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
I also have a contract.
I'd like to see the contract, too. Well, they didn't sign this for that says $3,800.
No, they didn't.
And nowhere in the contract for the purpose of purchasing the car does it say $3,800.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's on the first page.
Am I missing something? Show me where.
Okay, well, I guess it doesn't.
It does not.
Okay.
Well, let me tell you this. Usually a contract for the purchase
then
of...
I do
Listen to me.
have-
My mouth is moving.
Yes.
Usually when you make a contract for the purchase of a something, what you list is the property being sold and the purchase price. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, that didn't say this.
Okay, in our state, the buying party is not responsible to sign the bill of sale. But I also have where she registered the car and claimed $3,800 is what she paid for the car.
So let's say $3,800, but remember this.
Yes.
In the future, if you sell anything, you have to put the purchase price in the contract. That's what the contract is about.
Okay.
What you're selling and how much you're selling it for.
Well, Your
okay,
Honor,
you purchased the car for $3,800. How much did you pay?
I've paid a total of $3,912.
I'm not counting, madam, what you claim as far as work for hire and working off some of the...
Pay in cash was $912.50.
$912. It is your claim that you paid up because you fell onto some financial hard times and the plaintiff agreed to let you off the hook by doing some babysitting or something for her. And that you babysat for her $2,000 worth or more.
Yes, it was
No,
$3,000
Your Honor, she babysat.
You paid her $912. In what month and year did you stop paying her?
I stopped in January of 06.
When was your last payment? December of 05?
Yes, around December of 05.
Not about. When was your last payment? Did you pay it by check
December
or cash?
of 05. We always paid in cash.
So let's say January of 06, you stopped paying her because you were having financial difficulties. And what arrangements did you make?
I had went to her and told her that my husband and I were splitting up and that, I didn't really know what to do with the car. She then stated that I could work off the rest of the payments and doing daycare for her grandchildren that she had custody of.
And you're saying that happened in January?
Yes, that happened in January.
Did that happen in January?
No, it did not.
No, it didn't happen in January. Didn't happen in January.
Yes, it did.
No. Show me. Prove to me that you started doing daycare.
I have two letters.
Show me that you started to do daycare in January of 2006.
I actually started way before that because I was also doing daycare for health and welfare children.
I'm talking about for her grandchildren.
I have two statements here from people that did use my daycare that stated that they did see her children there.
Show me your record.
I don't have
your
those
record
records.
of when the children started. You run a business. When the children started each day, when they were there, for how many days they were there, for how many hours a day. Show me.
What I'm trying to tell you is through the Health and Welfare Department, I get paid monthly. The only time that I ever did daycare was for low-income women that were on the health and welfare, and she was the only one that I had let come to me without going through the Health and Welfare Department.
I understand that. That doesn't mean you don't keep records if you're paying off a debt.
We had made a deal with each other.
Oh, well, then tell me what the deal was.
That I would be doing daycare for her children or her grandchildren.
How many days a week?
It was about 2 days a week.
No.
Friday and
That's
Saturday.
what you see. That's what I mean. About 2 days a week.
Friday and Saturday nights when she would go out with her
Just a
stripper
second.
daughter.
Friday and Saturday evening. From when to when?
She would drop them off about 8 p.m. and pick them up in the morning at about 10 a.m.
And you're telling me that happened every Friday night and every Saturday night?
After her husband left her.
You're telling me that happened every Friday night and every Saturday night? Okay. And for that, you say you want to be credited for $400 a month.
That was for one child, the special needs child. The other child was $200 a month.
Did you leave the children with her every Friday and Saturday night?
No, I did not. She babysat during 1 week, and I have emails here that back up that
Can I see the emails?
Yes, I have several emails about how she will pay me, how she owes me.
Let me see.
There is some in there about babysitting, and I gave her $60 credit for a time that she did babysit.
Well, this is in June of '06. You say you started to take care of the children in January of '06.
I did.
You say to her, I will get more kids in my daycare, so I'll be okay next month. I also get paid twice a month, and I'm going to catch up on my car. I got a roommate so I can pay my darn bills. How is everyone?
And I don't get paid twice a month. I get paid once a month through health and welfare.
I don't care whether you get paid once or twice a month. That's not the issue. The issue is whether or not you were communicating with her with these things. Then she writes you one. August 18th, she says, could you babysit on Saturday night, maybe all night? How much would you charge for the 2 children? That's August 18th, 2006. And then finally in October of '06, she says, you have moved, your phone is disconnected, you won't call me, you don't want to babysit off the payments, you want the police to track down the car, call me.
Those are not emails that we have wrote. Those are fictitious.
That has her picture on it. It came through MySpace.
Which she is a computer genius. She actually tried to help me get my divorce by doing.
But then the thing I don't understand, madam, is she writes to you and she says, finally, in November of 2006, okay, I got a new job so I can finally start paying. I'm sorry it took so long. You remember sending that?
No, I don't.
Well,
none of those emails
absolutely
were sent.
Absolutely, 100%. She says probably close to $1,500. Come over and pay what you can. And then, according to her complaint, she never heard from you again. Now, I want to tell you why these emails that she showed me were accurate.
Sandra Baker claims former friend Micah Sandoval owes for the balance on a Ford Taurus. Micah says she paid off the debt with free babysitting.
Because she's suing you, not for the $1,500 that she says that you owe her, but she's suing you for $4,500 because she's added on late fees and whatever else. That's nonsense. So if she wanted to make up a story, she would have said probably close to $4,700. She doesn't say that. She says close to $1,500, which means she's giving you credit for $912 that you paid her in cash and for a whole lot of money for babysitting.
No, ma'am, it was $1,500 up to that point.
No, it says, how much do I owe? And you says probably close to $1,500.
Oh, okay.
That's what you say.
Well, when you make up your own emails, you probably forget what you're writing.
Oh, come on. Miss Sandoval, let me tell you something. When you buy a used car from somebody, you're supposed to pay for it. Now, usually if you buy a used car, you pay for it all at one time. She was very nice to you. She let you make payments. She not only let you make payments, but when you ran into some hard times, she said, you know what, we'll even lower the payments to $100 a month from $130. We'll lower the payments so that maybe you could make those. You couldn't make those. Then you said, we'll do a little barter. But after a while, you got tired of bartering. You did barter some, because you did babysit some, and then you make up in your own mind, I babysat enough. You know, I really babysat enough. This is what the state pays me. This is what she's going to pay me. And then the car's all paid off. Not only is it paid off, but I overpaid her.
She had released the title to me, which in Idaho you cannot release the title unless it is actually paid for.
When did she release the title?
February of '06.
Listen to me. In February of '06, you had only paid her, according to you, less than $1,000.
Well, with our $500 down payment that we did also. So that would have been $1,500.
Listen to me very, very carefully. You just said to me, before you paid for the car, she signed over the title.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you just told me.
Well, I had paid all in cash. And then after that, I was just going to do the daycare.
But you hadn't done it. So she released the car to you in good faith, right?
For all the daycare that I did do for her.
No. Before you did babysitting for her, madam.
I have babysat for her since
No.
grandchild was
Before you started babysitting for the 2 children, Friday and Saturday night, she released the car to you because she was a good soul. And after that, you stiffed her. Judging for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Not loan money to friends. I'll do what Judge Judy said.
It's fine with me. People I don't want in my life.
Not loan money to friends, not sell cars to friends. Keep friends as friends.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Mackey versus Dewey. Step forward.
Spa owner Lee Mackey is suing his former employee, 26-year-old esthetician Melanie Dewey, for the return of money he claims she stole. Melanie says she kept the money because Lee was withholding her pay.
Mr. Mackey, do you own a day spa? Is that what kind of establishment
Yes, ma'am, I'm actually a partner.
And according to what I read, the defendant did some work at your day spa as an esthetician. She gave facials. What else?
We didn't really get to that point yet, but I was going to be the head esthetician and I was getting ready to open the salon with them.
So you weren't working for them?
I was working for them, but not doing facials yet.
What were you doing?
I was helping them open the day spa, doing like the hiring and the training and ordering the supplies, bringing the supplies.
Okay. According to what I read, Miss Dewey came to you with some sort of a proposition, and that was that she had a friend from whom she could purchase a tanning bed at a very good price, $500. Is that right?
Not technically, ma'am. It's a spray tan machine, and the price was $550. So it was not technically
spray tanning machine?
Yes, ma'am.
You gave her the $550?
Gave her $500 in cash, and then I helped put $150 down for her insurance.
I don't want to know about the insurance. You gave her $500 in cash for the machine?
$650 total, ma'am.
Mr. Mackey, I want you to listen to me, sir. I said you gave her $500 in cash for the machine.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you said, well, I didn't want the machine. You were going to sell it to somebody else. And when you told that to the defendant, she said, well, I'm going to keep the $500.
Yes, ma'am.
And you also claimed that you loaned her $150 for her car insurance?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Miss Dewey says that, in fact, you did give her the $500. You did pay the $150, but you owed her money for some wages, and she's keeping everything. Right?
Correct.
Uh-huh. When were you supposed to open the spa, Mr. Mackey?
Originally it was in June, but we were delayed for construction. We finally opened December 15th.
Of 2003?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did Miss Dewey come to work for you?
I'd have to actually talk to our general manager, Eric. He's actually the one that dealt with hiring her.
When did Miss Dewey come to work for you?
She started helping the spa open, I would say, in early...
You're thinking really hard. The questions get harder here,
September.
Sir. What?
September.
September what?
I don't know the exact date.
When in September?
It was the last week of July, actually.
Is that a possibility, sir?
I have her paycheck here that says 11/13/03 for 16 hours that she put in, and $295 of products that she purchased that she was reimbursed for.
11/16/03 is the first paycheck she had?
Yes,
You said she came to work for you in September.
that is correct.
So what happened to September and October?
This is when she was reimbursed for her hours.
Let me see. Okay. So you say you came to work in July.
End of July, last week.
And what did you do for them in July?
They had me look online for products that they would like, talk to them on the phone, ordering supplies, going with them to Sausalito to order supplies.
Well, I want you to take out a list of the hours that you worked.
He was responsible for all those hours. I don't have any of the hours.
You mean you were being paid on an hourly basis and you didn't keep track of how many hours you worked?
He actually was supposed to give me a base salary, which I never had, and a compensation package that he never gave me. He never came through with anything that he said that he would.
Then why did you continue there?
That's why I quit, and that's why I kept the money. It was ridiculous.
Well, you can't do that.
I felt that I could. Maybe
well, you can't.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Lee Mackey says former employee Melanie Dewey owes for the return of money. Melanie claims it's Lee who owes her.
Okay. What's your first name?
Melanie.
Melanie! Listen to me, dear. If you go to work for somebody in July and you get your first paycheck in November, you're supposed to say,
Too trusting.
Something isn't right here. I worked in July, I worked in August, I worked in September, I worked in October. November 16th, I get a check for $583. Something isn't quite making sense here. Now, when did he give you the $500 for this tanning machine?
It was in September.
August 28th, ma'am. Also, just to talk a little bit about what Melanie is saying about working, we actually weren't even open. We were during construction.
I understand that.
So-
What Melanie is saying is she was helping you set up. And she had to have been there prior to when you say she was there in November, because she made this arrangement to get you a piece of equipment in August.
That's because we were friends.
Mr. Mackey, don't play with me. You may have promised her that she would have a role in the new day spa and that she would be the chief esthetician, but you needed some help in setting up the place, and she was on the phone, and she may have gone to look for some products for you. It's her responsibility to keep track of her own hours, to check against yours. She can't do that. She can't come here with a pretty smile and a great tan and then say to me, this is my evidence. I mean, that doesn't float. So August 28th, Miss Dewey, you got the $500. And when did you decide to keep it for yourself? What date?
Probably around the end of September when I was still working for them and training all of their estheticians. And then I asked him for my compensation package, and he said that it was a great package, nowhere to be found, but they were going to turn around and sell the machine that I was giving them and make about $1,000 off of it. And at that point I realized I'm not going to get paid, they're making money, and I'm getting totally screwed.
That was in September?
Correct.
So in September you kept the money?
Correct.
Did you continue to go to work there?
No.
Well, then can you explain this check that was given to you on November 13th for $583 that you cashed?
I guess it was a later time. I don't remember the time frames.
Can I ask you this question, Miss Dewey?
Yes.
What did you do to prepare for your day in court? I mean, other than put on perfect makeup, what did you do?
I've been out of the country. I wasn't prepared.
You certainly are not prepared. What you're supposed to do when you come to court is the judge is going to ask you questions. Then you had to sit down and say, this is when I went to work for them. These are the hours that I put in. This is when I stopped working. This is when I decided to appropriate the $500 for myself because I wasn't getting paid. But if now you tell me that you appropriated the $500 in September, and then 2 months later they pay you $583, something doesn't quite fit. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right, so I can't help you, madam. Now, what about this $150 loan for insurance?
Well, actually, ma'am, $50 was supposed to go towards the machine. The other was a loan because the insurance agent was around the corner from my house, and I do have the canceled check.
Can I see it,
where I
please?
wrote Melanie on the info line because it was not for me.
And a State Farm is where you insure your car, is that correct?
That's where he insured my car, yes.
What do you mean he insured your car?
He was trying to pursue me. He was trying to date me. And that was one of his ways to get me to date him, was to get car insurance for me. So that was something that he did as a gift.
Just a second. Melanie, he was trying to date you, he was trying to pursue you. That adds a new layer to this rather interesting
Actually, both
case.
owners were, actually.
What?
Yeah. The day that we went to go get products in Sausalito, Eric was rubbing my shoulders in front of the guy that we were buying products from.
I don't care, and neither does he. You don't care about rubbing shoulders, do you?
As long as they're not my shoulders.
Yeah. Well, I don't care about rubbing shoulders. All I care about is State Farm insurance for $150. Go someplace else if you want to talk about rubbing shoulders. Now, you allowed him to pay for your insurance, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Why?
Because he said it was a gift and he wanted to do that for me.
I don't believe you. Okay, listen, Melanie, where do you work now, darling?
I work at a day spa.
What do you do in the day spa?
I'm an esthetician.
How many days a week do you work?
4 days.
What do you do on the 5th day?
I take care of my son.
And on 4 days, working 4 days a week, you're able to support yourself and your child?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, wonderful. So I hope you have the $650 to return to Mr. Mackey. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $650. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may stay.
Now, this is case number 289 on the calendar in the matter of Lattimore versus Lorette. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Lattimore, your claim is that the defendant's son hurt your son with a golf club.
Yes, that's right.
Causing him to have severe damage to his teeth, loss of permanent teeth. And
That's
you want the defendant to be responsible for the medical bills and dental bills for your son.
That's right.
Was the defendant a friend of yours?
She was someone that I knew through a family member. She was also a neighbor where I was living at, but we weren't friends, so to speak.
Okay. Now, what was the date of the injury to your son?
That was December 23rd of 2002.
And was she babysitting for you for hire that day?
Yes, she was.
And what did you pay her?
I'm not sure. I believe I paid her $15 per child because she usually watched my daughter too, but this particular day it was just my son. So when I came home, I should have owed her $15.
And you had paid her before?
Yes, I have.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And how much notice did you give her before you dropped your kids off?
It could have possibly been a couple of days before.
Do you recall?
Yeah, I do recall, and it wasn't that much notice.
How much notice
It was about 10 minutes. She knocked at my door that morning and asked me to watch her children, and I said that I would.
Okay. And you expected to be compensated as you had been in the past?
Yes. Yes.
With money?
Yes.
And how old is your son?
My son is 6 years old.
That's this little boy right here?
Yes, that's right.
What's his name?
Jeremy.
And what's your son's name?
Zachary.
Okay. What time did you bring Jeremy into Miss Lorette?
I had to be to work at about 9, so I'm pretty sure I brought him over at about 8:30.
Correct?
Somewhere, yeah, I don't remember the time, but
Was it a school day?
No, it was during Christmas vacation.
Zachary, step up
Yes?
next to your mom. I read here that you are a golf enthusiast.
Yes.
You remember that day in December when you hurt Jeremy?
Yes, Your Honor.
I want you to tell me what happened.
He walked behind me on mid-swing, and it was a total accident, Your Honor.
Where were you playing?
In my backyard.
Did you tell your mom you were going out to play?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you tell your mom you were going out to play golf?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you say that Jeremy was going with you?
Yes, Your Honor.
What did your mom say?
She said yes.
That it was okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
And she stayed in the house?
Yes, Your Honor.
What was your mom doing in the house?
She was watching TV, Your Honor.
You remember what she was watching?
I think it was Passions.
He stepped behind you while you were in mid-swing.
Yes.
And you hit him with the golf club in his mouth.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Stand up next to your mom. Jeremy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about when you got hit in the mouth with the golf club.
I was standing right next to him. He hit me in the mouth with the golf club.
He didn't mean to hit you. It was an accident. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, when he hit you with the golf club, what happened? Did he take you inside?
No, I
Did you-
went inside myself.
And where did Zachary go?
In the house.
So you both went in together. And did you find his mom?
No, she came and found me.
Where were you?
In the back door.
And what did she do after she found you?
She took me in the bathroom.
And took care of your mouth?
Yes.
What time did you call Miss Lattimore?
Immediately after, Your Honor. He had a bloody nose when he came in. I applied some tissue and pressure to his nose to stop the bleeding, and then I called her at work. And then from there, she came to my house, and I drove them both to the emergency room.
Okay. Do you have any evidence that you want me to see?
Yes, I have x-rays here of that also shows that there were 2 teeth missing at the time. So
there were 2 teeth that came out?
Yes.
2 permanent teeth?
No, just one of them were permanent. One of them had already came out and it grew back in. The other one was just growing into the gums, just peeking out, and it was knocked out just like that.
So he's missing a permanent tooth?
Yes, right now he is missing a permanent tooth. The other one has grown back since then.
Well, you're going to have one great tooth at some point, right? One that's going to be better than all the rest.
Yes.
Never give you any trouble.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, Miss Lorette, the facts in the case are really not in dispute. I don't believe that Zachary intentionally hurt Jeremy. I believe it was an accident on his part. So I want you to explain to me why you're not responsible.
Your Honor, as I said, when this happened, I drove them both to the emergency room. I told Miss Lattimore that if she needed anything from me, if she had any medical bills, I would be there. She told myself, she told my children, it's okay, it was an accident, I have Medicaid. I haven't heard from her until recently. I haven't had any phone calls, no visits. I haven't seen any medical bills. You know, she claims that I was so negligent with her children, but yet I watched her children again several times after that. As far as I was concerned, we were friends after that. Her children were at my home the day of my son's birthday party.
So what do you think happened? Well, maybe I'll ask you, Miss Lattimore, what happened?
Okay, I haven't spoken with her since that happened, and common sense would...
Just a second, your children haven't stayed with her since that happened?
No, Your Honor, they have not been with her since then. Immediately after this happened, not too long after that, she moved. And then the only phone number that I had listed for her, I had to look her up in the phone book, and that was disconnected. And from what I understand, I was told through word of mouth that she had moved to Lake Worth. She doesn't live in Lake Worth. She lives in a completely different place from there.
How did you find her?
How did I find her? The person that was there because the story that they told you is not completely true altogether, first of all. When I came there after work, he was laying in the lap of my best friend that lives a couple of houses down. That's who had him. And that's who told me, because they were already friends. That's who told me where to find Melissa at.
Okay.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Yeah, sure.
My question is, why did she wait so long to try to find me? Her neighbor that she was living with at the time works with my husband. She always knew how to get a hold of me because she knew how to get a hold of my husband. I lived in the same residence until the middle of February of that year. She was at my home on January 22nd or 23rd because I took her children with me when I went shopping for party favors for my daughter's party. Her daughter got caught stealing when she was with me. She did something I didn't approve of.
Just a second, is that just a second?
I did not.
Just so that you...
She's right. My daughter has been over her house since then for a birthday party when she went with her, and she did get caught stealing. You are absolutely right.
Okay. I watched her kids a few times after that.
But there's still something that I'd like to...
And then I cut ties with her because she did something in my home that I didn't approve of.
Okay.
Would you like me to reply?
I lived at that Lake Worth...
Just a second. You want to reply? I'm listening.
The reason I have not contacted you, first of all, like I said... The reason I have not contacted her, like I said, because from what I understood, she moved. Okay, second of all, the reason I did not contact her, because at first, when this was being done, I didn't know that was a permanent tooth that had come out. I didn't know until he had constantly been going back to the dentist, and I'm sitting around just waiting and waiting and waiting for this tooth to grow back, and it never did. So finally, I asked the dentist, I'm like, well, when is this tooth? Because the other one did, you see. I assumed that it was going to grow back too. I'm like, well, when is this tooth coming back? He said, I'm sorry, sweetheart, that was permanent. It's not going to grow back.
Right. Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And later today,
we heard something, something, so we stopped. I asked, what did he just say to you? And she never got to answer because somebody's kicking my car. I'm like, what are you doing? He's still kicking my car.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. LaShonda Lattimore says 11-year-old Zachary Baggett knocked out her son's teeth with a golf club. Zachary says it was an accident.
Miss Lorette, you are responsible because you assumed the care of her 6-year-old child, and you had no business being inside watching Passions when your son was outside and had in his possession something that could cause physical injury. So if you sent him outside and said to him, be careful, that may be okay if he's your neighbor and it just happens to come by. But you assumed the responsibility for hire of providing care for her child, which means that if you're letting your son go outside with a racket, a bat, something else, you cannot rely on a 10 or an 11-year-old to watch a 6-year-old. That's your job. So, let me see the bills that you have, please. Bottom line is, when you assume the care of somebody else's child, whether you do it for money or not, it's your responsibility. You're almost an insurer. Accept that responsibility. You don't accept that responsibility and watch soap operas.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Yeah, sure.
I wasn't watching Passions that day. I was heading out the back door when this one came in screaming.
Well,
he went over
you
to
were
the
in
next
fact
door.
you were in fact inside.
Right. He went over to the next door neighbor's yard and grabbed a golf ball to bring over to play with Zachary. I told both of those boys what the safety rules were. You don't stand behind each other. You don't walk up behind each other.
I believe that you did that. Just a minute. I believe that. Let us assume that you did that.
Right.
That's not sufficient.
Right.
You have to be out there. You know, I have whole gaggle of grandchildren, and they love to play golf. And when they come to my house, I have little, all different size golf clubs for them to play with. And my grandchildren range in age, the golf players, from 2 to 10. Mm-hmm. They're never unsupervised. I wouldn't think of saying to the 10-year-old, listen, I want you to go outside and be careful of Mia, and be careful of Jacob, and be careful of Kobe, and be careful of Alexi, because they might walk behind you.
Right.
A parent is always out there. I'm always out there. My husband is always out there. Sometimes two of us, depending upon how many kids there are out there playing golf, to make sure that nobody walks behind the golf club. So, how much of these bills was covered by Medicaid?
Medicaid, those are the bills that are not covered by Medicaid. Okay. They're not.
Okay. Bills are at least $4,500. 3324 and 1182. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. The $500 that I'm awarding you in addition to the medical bills is for his pain and suffering and aggravation. You should have been more careful. You too. That's all. Step out.
All right, is that excuse? You may step out.
I don't believe that the boy intentionally just took the golf club and hit him in the mouth.
Was an accident?
He was standing right in front of him, and he didn't ask him to move.
The child walked up behind my son while he was in mid-swing with the golf club.
The common sense would tell any child, whether it was a 6-year-old or an 11-year-old, move.
I put too much trust in the children, and I understand that.
Judge Judy, I watch your show all the time. We love you, and thank you.
I learned my lesson. What can I say?
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Pena versus Carreri, step forward, please.
22-year-old customer service rep Udelka Pena is suing carpenter Dominic Carreri for kicking her car in a drunken rage. Dominic is denying the charge.
Miss Pena, it is your claim that Mr. Carreri kicked your car.
Yes.
And you didn't know him before?
No.
You're driving down a street late at night. What time?
Must have been around 12:30, 1 o'clock.
And where were you coming from?
I was picking up my cousin from her friend's house.
Where had you been?
I had been at my boyfriend's house.
What kind of car were you driving?
A Saturn, 1991.
Who else was in the car?
My cousin Maribel.
How fast were you going?
20, 25.
Think again.
Yeah, it was 20.
20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Unlikely. And why don't you tell me what happened?
Well, as I was going down the street, we encountered some people in the middle of the road. They appeared to be drunk. I started beeping the horn at them.
Just a minute. What do you mean you encountered some people in the middle of the road that appeared to be drunk?
They were kind of swaying, and they were just bunched out in the middle of the street. And we started beeping the horn for them to get out of the way. Nothing happened.
Just a minute. You're driving 20 miles an hour, and you see a group of people. How many people?
4 or 5.
And are they in the middle of the block, the end of the block?
They're like in the middle of the road.
Just standing in the middle of the road?
Yeah.
Now, when you first saw them, how far away from them were you?
Maybe from, I want to say, the end of the courtroom to about over there.
Over where?
Over by the flags.
So probably 30 feet away?
Yeah.
And you first saw them, you were 30 feet away. Your lights are on.
Mm-hmm.
Did you stop the car?
No, I beeped the horn for them to get out.
Why did you do that?
So that they would get out of the way.
Okay. But they didn't move, according to what I've read.
No.
So how close did you get to them?
About where you are and about right there. The end of the
right
table.
Where?
The end of the table.
So maybe 10 feet away?
Yep.
So you stopped your car when you were 10 feet away from them?
Mm-hmm.
And what did you do?
I let them by.
What do you mean you let them by?
They decided to cross.
And then what happened?
They started screaming something. I don't know why. My cousin told them to get out of the middle of the road. You're drunk.
Okay. And then what happened?
And then they got out. They were still screaming something at us. We continued to go. I must have went 5 feet or so, and we heard something. So we stopped. When we stopped, I asked, what did he just say to you? And she never got to answer because somebody's kicking my car. I get out of the car. I'm standing by the door, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's still kicking my car. So that's when I flagged an officer who was at a stop sign, and that's when he stopped kicking my car.
Do you have pictures of the car?
Yes, I do.
Let me see pictures of the car. And a police report, please.
I have a police report, too.
Okay. I'd like to hear your version of the events, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Myself, my wife, and 2 other friends were crossing the street in a crosswalk, and I looked up to my right, and there was a car coming down the road pretty fast. So we started to slow down because it was sleeting out at the time.
You mean the weather was bad?
Yes, it was sleeting out.
Is that right?
No. The weather was not bad, and they weren't at a crosswalk.
I didn't ask crosswalk. I asked about the weather.
No, the weather was not bad.
It was sleeting out that night.
Go ahead.
Anyway, as we started to come up, she started sounding her horn. We kept crossing a little bit further because she was probably about 50 yards away when we first started from the sidewalk crossing the street. And she came to a slide and stop. And just as she slid just past us a little bit, I smacked the back of her bumper and screamed at her, said, hey, why don't you watch where you're going?
I know exactly what you did.
I never actually made it across the street. Then we actually kept walking afterwards and went back the other side. The police officer was sitting right across the street and saw the whole thing.
No, the police officer didn't see the whole thing, sir. But I have your statement and I have her statement. Police officer took both of your version of the events, and you acknowledged kicking her car, right? So I know exactly what happened. She was driving too fast. The weather was bad. She didn't wait for you to cross the street. You had the right of way. You got frustrated because she almost hit you. She acknowledges she almost hit you because she said she stopped 10 feet away. 10 feet away is an insufficient amount of time to stop at night. Whether the roads were slick or not, I don't know. You say that they were. She doesn't know. Certainly it's not enough time. She had no reason to start honking at you from 30 feet away, which is where she was when she first saw you, so you got frustrated. Fair?
Fair.
And the police officer said to both of you, he said to you, pedestrians have the right of way. You stop your car and you let them go. And he said to you, you're not allowed to put your hands on somebody else's property, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So now I'm going to see what you estimate the damage to be to this 1991 Saturn.
I went and took an estimate of it.
Yes.
And this is what they gave me.
Mm-hmm. What?
Just wanted to say that where I smacked the car, it was on the left side. This is something on the opposite side of the car. I even told the officer, I says, yeah, I did smack the bottom of her bumper when she came by us, but if I broke a piece off the car like she said I did, the piece would be laying right there on the ground. You know, where's the piece of the car that's missing?
Unfortunately, when you have a temper and you hit somebody's car, it's very difficult for somebody else to figure out whether the damage that was done to the car was there before. If you're dumb enough to vandalize somebody else's property, I mean, what you do is you back off, you call a police officer, you say this car was driving in a reckless manner, I want to file a complaint. You get a license plate and you do that, you know. You hurt yourself by behaving badly and by showing your temper. However, I do find, Ms. Pena, that you are partially responsible for his bad temper, because I have been there and I have seen people driving in a reckless manner, and while I don't excuse what he did, I find that what he did was mitigated by the fact that you were driving at an excessive rate of speed, which caused you not to be able to stop within a reasonable period of time. 10 feet is not reasonable when there are 4 or 5 people crossing the street. You had no right to start honking your horn from 30 feet away or 40 feet away. They had the right of way. As soon as they put their foot in the middle of the street, they had the right of way. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
Good. Very good. So I hope that you can get your bumper fixed for $250, because that is all you're going to get. Thank you very much. That's all.
All right, you are excused. You may step out. Judges, is case number 352 on the calendar in the matter of Mantha versus Linnell. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Miss Mantha, this is your mom.
Yes.
And your complaint says that your mom filed false charges against you with Child Protective Services involving your daughter, who is how old?
6.
And you want to be compensated for your aggravation.
Yeah.
Your mother says she had legitimate concerns for your daughter's safety. And she had at some point been the caretaker for that child. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's why she called Child Protective Services to do an investigation. So I have to get some facts. Is this your only child?
No, I have a 9-month-old son also.
Who's the father of that child?
Jason.
This is Jason.
Yes.
Jason, you stand up there, because I may have some questions for you. How old are you?
I'm 24.
Now, your daughter was born when you were 18.
Yes.
Where is her father?
He's incarcerated right now.
So that was a big mistake.
Yeah.
And when did your daughter go and live with your mother?
She was probably 14 or 15 months old. It was right after her first birthday.
What's her name?
Jasmine.
Why did Jasmine go and live with your mother?
At the time, I didn't have a stable place for her to stay. I was living with my boyfriend, who was an alcoholic, and he had friends in and out of the house all hours of the night. I didn't have my own job, so I couldn't take care of myself and support us on my own, and it wasn't a good place for my daughter to be.
Were you doing any drugs or alcohol?
I was drinking a lot.
Was the child removed from your custody by the state, or was this initially voluntary?
Voluntary.
Was the state ever involved in placement of your daughter with your mother? How long did Jasmine stay with your mother?
6 months.
And then the boyfriend went to jail? Or you left?
I just left. I moved out of there. I decided it was time for me to be a mother, and I moved back in with my mother and my daughter.
And how long did you stay?
6 or 7 months, maybe.
And
just long enough for me to get a job and get out on my own.
And your mother let you take your daughter?
Yes.
With no fight?
No fight.
So far, I got it. You were off track, came back home, you got on track, your mother was there for you. She was there for you to pick up the slack, taking on the responsibility of a toddler, took on you as a responsibility when you moved home. She saw that you had gotten it together, you moved out with your daughter, moved into your own place?
Yes.
No boyfriend?
At the time, no.
Then what happened?
I moved out for a while. I had actually moved in with a coworker of mine. And at that time, that was probably the first time that my mother had called CPS on me.
Why do you think she did that?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. I don't really know.
Who was this coworker? Male?
Yes.
Maybe she didn't approve.
She knows who he is.
Is he a good person?
Yes, he is.
And how long did you live with?
Actually, probably about a month and a half.
And then where did you go?
Back to my mom's.
Because that didn't work out?
Right.
Went back to your mom's, and how long did you stay with your mother?
After that, probably 4 or 5 months, maybe.
Then where did you go?
Then I got my own place again.
How long did you have your own place?
I stayed there for 9 months.
Then what happened?
I moved out, and I moved in with my Aunt Becky, actually. And I stayed with her for probably about a month. That's when I met him, and we found our own place.
How long did you know Jason before you moved in with him?
A year and a half, maybe 2 years. I worked with him also.
What kind of work do you do, Jason?
Right now, I drive a garbage truck.
You have children?
Yes.
How many?
3.
Including the 9-month-old? Where are your other 2 children?
One is living in Bangor with his mother, and the other is in Tennessee.
Were you married to either of those 2 ladies?
My second child, I was married to her.
How old are you?
27.
So you're 27. You have 3 children. 2 of them you don't see.
One of them I see every weekend. During the summer, I see him every other week.
So only one of them you don't see?
Yes.
You support the other 2 children?
I pay child support every week.
For both of them?
Yes.
Okay. You would acknowledge to me, would you not, that you have not had a stable life thus far, is that right?
That's correct.
And that if your mother had concerns about you, they would be legitimate concerns based upon your history, right?
Yeah, yes.
Why did you call Child Protective Services the last time, and when was it, if you'd like to tell me?
Mid-September of this year.
Tell me why.
Well, there's been an ongoing situation with Jasmine saying that Jason has been mean to her.
Has she been more specific?
Just that he's been physically mean to her twice.
Well, she didn't use the word physically.
No. He grabbed her by the back neck and ran her into the bedroom one time.
You mean like this?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
And once he had smacked her on the back of the head like this. That's how she explained it.
Okay.
You know, I was worried about that, but I tried talking to Jasmine. I said, you could talk to Mama about this. Let Mama know what's going on. She says, I do, but Mama gets mad at me if I tell her Jason's mean to me. And I says, well, I'll talk to Mama. Well, I tried talking to Mama about things that have been going on. Mama don't want to listen to me.
You mean those 2 things? Was there anything else?
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
yes,
I'd like to know what else.
Well, I was taking my, you know, I have my granddaughter a lot, sometimes up to 4 times a week over weekends. On several occasions during the last few months, when she was time for her to go home, she hung right on to me. Please, Mammy, I don't want to go. I don't want to stay. Her mother literally had to peel her off of me to keep her in her home, because she said she was afraid of Jason. And then on an occasion in August, Angela had gone out with a bunch of her girlfriends, and one of them happened to be my future daughter-in-law. And Sharon,
your
my
future
daughter, she is my daughter-in-law now, had come to me and told me that on that occasion when they were getting ready to leave, Jasmine clung onto my daughter, holding on to her, saying, Mom, please don't leave me with Jason. And they literally peeled her off of Angela, left her with Jason, and went out drinking anyways. Now, this has been an ongoing situation since Angela's been 17. She had her baby when she was 17, Your Honor. She turned 18 a month later. That left me responsible for...
Oh, I understand. So that's the reason that you called Child Protective Services. So, let me hear you.
History.
Your Honor, I talk to my daughter a lot. We have a good relationship together. She has never told me anything like that. She has not said anything about Jason. She's always talked good about him. She's here right now. I would love to have you talk to her if you would do that.
Mm-hmm. I will.
I would like you to.
Sure.
When Child Protective Services came and did their investigation, did they give you any sort of a report afterwards?
Yep. I have a closing statement and I have the assessment. I also have a copy of a random drug test that they give Jason at his work, just because she says we have excessive drug and alcohol use in the home.
Okay, just hold on to those things. I want to go and speak to Jasmine. Why don't you all have a seat for a couple of minutes?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You leave with her, you stay someplace else for a month, then you come back to your mother, then you leave your mother, then you go back to your aunt. So this child at age 6 has had absolutely zero stability. Fair statement?
No, Your Honor.
Of course it is.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Angela Mantha says her mother, Storm Linnell, filed false charges with Child Protective Services. Storm says she was worried about her granddaughter.
Jasmine really didn't want to talk to me. She's a little upset. I think she's upset because, you know, she's in a strange place and she knows that this is all about her. She probably knows that there's been a lot of friction because of, she views it because of things that she says.
She loves my mother. She really does.
Oh, well, there's no question in my mind she loves my mother. Okay, so let's talk about objectively what we have. First, let me see the closing statement from Child Protective Services.
His drug test is in there, too. I don't know if you want that, but...
Okay. Do you think that your mother maliciously called Child Protective Services?
Yes, I do.
Tell me why you believe that your mother maliciously called Child Protective Services.
Because during our last fight that we had when we was all at my Aunt Becky's house, she told me right then and there that she was going to do anything in her power to get Jasmine. What that means, I don't know.
Well, in what context did she say that to you?
Well, we were fighting.
What were you fighting about?
What happened is when I come in, I was on the road all day. I had a lot of doctor's appointments and stuff, and I had my son with me, who was 9 months old. And I brought him in to feed him and change him. And I don't smoke around my son, and when I walked in, everybody put out their cigarettes. Well, I guess a guy that was there, Kevin, still had a cigarette going. I did not see him with a cigarette in his hand. And then my mother lit up a cigarette. So I just started packing the stuff up, and I was just going to leave. I didn't want to start anything. And she just
This was at your aunt's house?
This is at my Aunt Becky's house, yes. And that's when she started in. She's like, well, I don't know why you didn't say anything to Kevin about him smoking. And I was like, I didn't see him with a cigarette. I really didn't. If I had seen him, I would have said something to him.
Go ahead.
And that's when it all started, and we exchanged some words back and forth. She's talking about how I'm not a very good mom, and this and that, and she looked at me. She's like, I will get Jasmine. I will do anything to get her.
Well, that wasn't the first time that your mother has called Child Protective Services.
No. I've had Child Protective Services call them like 3 times. 2 for a fact I know with my mother.
Any of them when you were living with Jasmine when she was a baby?
No. The first time is when I first moved back from Bingham. I think that my mother might have moved out and I was renting her place from her. Myself and my girlfriend Amanda and Jasmine were living there. That was the first time CPS was at my house. The second time is when I moved to Joe with my girlfriend Amanda and Jasmine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
that lasted for a month before you moved out, if my memory is correct.
And he was only at my house once, and he left and he never come back. I don't know what happened to that.
I don't know either.
No.
I don't get the sense that your mother called maliciously.
No.
No. I mean, for the first 14 months, you were not living in a reasonable relationship because you were drinking. Father of the child was drinking.
No,
There
she
isn't
wasn't.
a question in my mind that during the initial period of her life, the child was neglected. Then she goes to stay with your mother. You come back and stay with your mother. Then you leave with her. Then you stay someplace else for a month, someplace else for 5 months. Then you come back to your mother. Then you leave your mother. Then you go back to your aunt. So this child at age 6 has absolutely zero stability. Fair statement?
No, Your Honor.
Of course it is. I mean, just look at it. I'm looking at it objectively. The child has had, in 6 years, no stability. She's had Joe, she's had Jason, she's had her father, she's had I don't know who else. She's had her mother, she's had her grandmother, she's had her aunt. At age 6, she's had no stability. So I'm telling you as an outsider that thus far as a mother, you have not been terrific.
That's fair.
Then you hook up with Jason, who was in his 20s, who already has had 2 major mistakes. One a marriage, one an out-of-wedlock child. And I don't know anything else about him. But I do know that there is cause for concern because your track record's not terrific.
To be honest, you know, I never said that I was a great mom when my daughter was a baby, because I wasn't. But for the past 3.5 years, I've provided a more than stable home. I've been working full-time, or, well, part-time. I have a beautiful home, transportation. She's in school, she's healthy. She's in soccer and Girl Scouts. I do a lot with the school for her. My whole life revolves around her now.
No, it doesn't revolve around her. It revolves around her and a 9-month-old.
Well,
and his child who's there all the time.
Exactly.
According to you.
But I treat all the children the same. I don't give anybody special attention. That's a problem?
Yeah. In your daughter's eyes, that's a problem. If you treat everybody the same. It just is. That doesn't mean she's right. She's 6 years old. But she had her grandmother, who was her focus.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken that away from her. Because according to what I read, she doesn't see her grandmother anymore.
She hasn't for 2 months.
According to this. So that's true. So she hasn't seen her grandmother in 2 months, so you've taken that piece of stability away from her. Now, I'm not saying that she was Mother of the Year, because according to what I read, you had some problems yourself. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, ma'am.
Series of relationships that went nowhere?
No, ma'am.
Well, according to your daughter, that's true, that your husband was killed?
Yes, sir.
And that after your husband,
13.
you had a series of relationships?
I've had 2.
That were in some way abusive and or alcoholic?
That's why he's gone.
Well, it doesn't make any difference.
Yes,
it was
you're
there
right.
with your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
When she was growing up, so she was involved with it. So what I'm saying to you is you have to understand that nothing is perfect. People do make mistakes.
That's right.
What I'm suggesting to you is the only focus for me right now is the 6-year-old who has one constant that's no longer in her life, taken away abruptly. She has to share her mother with a sibling, which is very often traumatic for a young child, even a young child who hasn't had the kind of history that your daughter has had. And she also shares that child with a pseudo-stepchild, because you're not married to him. So that's not a stepchild, but it's somebody that comes over periodically. Plus you work part-time, so
I do.
you got a full plate. He doesn't sound like a terrible guy, but a self-acknowledged bad temper, right?
Yeah.
And he says he has a bad temper when he's helping the children out with their schoolwork and they don't seem to get what he's telling them, so he has a tendency to yell. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, I assume that your 9-month-old doesn't go to school.
Not yet.
So I assume that the child that you're referring to is Jasmine.
Mostly I was referring to my son.
Well, he's not with you Monday through Friday to help with his schoolwork.
Actually, Your
tried to
Honor,
help
sometimes he is.
Sometimes is not all the time. Jasmine lives there full time.
I was referring to my son. Jasmine, I tried.
It certainly doesn't say that here. So she's got a very full plate, your daughter. And I'm not going to get involved with whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea for you not to let her continue to see her grandmother. I don't have enough information. Off the top of my head, I would say it's a tragic mistake for her. Because it's the one constant that she's had in her life. Because you've had several different men. You've had her father, you've had Joe, you've had Tom, you've had Jason, you've had whoever in your life. And one constant she has is your maternal family. And if you cut them off, I think that that's a big mistake. But I see no malice in your mother's phone call. Go ahead.
May I say something? I haven't cut her off from my complete family. My grandmother had 14 children, and I'm very close with all of them.
Okay.
And if I could say one more thing else, my grandmother done this exact same thing to my mother and my Aunt Becky. And there was no reason then, and there's no reason now, is the way I look at it.
Well, as I said to you, I don't get the sense that there was a malicious intent on the part of your mother. And it's very possible that your daughter did say to her, I can't tell you, because then Mommy said, I can't see you anymore. That makes sense to me. That was in your mom's answer. I can't tell you what's going on because Mom says I can't see you anymore. And I can hear that conversation. You know, if you're going to talk to Grandma about what goes on in the house, I'm not going to let you see her anymore.
I would never say that.
Sort of interesting for her to at least attribute that to the child, whether you said it or whether you didn't. It's not a good idea for you to inquire about what's going on in the house. That puts your granddaughter, if you do, in a very difficult situation. In any event, I assume that you will work out whether or not you see your granddaughter between the two of you. As I said, I think it's probably not in your daughter's best interest not to see her grandmother, but I see nothing malicious about the phone call to Child Protective Services.
She has been malicious as far as to the people in my community. I live in a small town. I grew up in that town, and that whole town thinks nothing but bad about me and Jason now. She's told people that Jason's molested Jasmine.
I have never, ever accused him of molestation.
That should be on the,
I have
on
never.
That report.
They asked me if I thought that might be the case, and I said, I don't really know. That's something I can't say because that's nothing that was
she's a 6-year-old child who has a yeast infection, according to the reports. And for somebody who may not be schooled, they may not know how you develop a yeast infection, but certainly sexually transmitted disease is one possibility.
Your Honor, my doctor told me that yeast infections are caused in little girls by sitting in a soapy bathtub.
That's possible.
It is very
possible. No, it's possible, but I will tell you now that for a 6-year-old to have a yeast infection who does not have a history of taking antibiotics, which sometimes causes that for a long period of time, might be problematic for a grandmother. She says she's never made those statements. I have nobody here to counter that, but I see nothing in the history of this case that suggests to me that she made any calls maliciously. So your case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
What if I told you there's a country where people don't just follow rules, they believe in them? A place where highways have no speed limits, beer is cheaper than water, and castles look like something out of a fairy tale. This isn't a fantasy. It's real. It's Germany. And today, you're about to uncover 10 amazing facts about a nation that blends power with poetry, order with imagination. Let's begin. Fact 1. Germany is home to the world's fastest roads, the Autobahn. On certain stretches, there's no speed limit at all. Drivers can legally go as fast as their cars allow. But here's the twist. Accidents are fewer compared to countries with strict limits. Why? Because Germans are trained, focused, and disciplined behind the wheel. Speed here isn't chaos, it's controlled freedom. Fact 2. Beer isn't just a drink in Germany, it's a way of life. There are over 1,500 breweries and more than 7,000 different kinds of beer. Bavaria even considers beer a basic food item, and during Oktoberfest, millions gather to celebrate not just beer, but history, culture, and community. In Germany, raising a glass means raising spirits together. Fact 3. Germans take punctuality seriously. It's considered a form of respect. Whether it's a train, a meeting, or even a dinner invitation, being late is a big no. Trains that are even 2 minutes behind schedule are announced as delayed. This national respect for time makes Germany one of the most efficient countries in the world. Fact 4. Germany is a land of castles, over 20,000 of them. From mountain fortresses to riverside palaces, each tells a story of knights, kings, and legends. The famous Neuschwanstein Castle even inspired Disney's Sleeping Beauty Castle. These castles aren't just ruins. They're windows into a romantic and powerful past. Fact 5. The German language has words that don't exist in English, like Fernweh, which means longing for places you've never been, or Weltschmerz, the pain of knowing the world can't be perfect. These words reflect the depth and emotional intelligence of a culture that's both logical and poetic. Fact 6. Germany leads in renewable energy. It's one of the world's top producers of solar and wind power. In fact, some towns are already running 100% on clean energy. This isn't just technology, it's a national mindset of sustainability and responsibility for future generations. Fact 7. Education in Germany is free, even for international students. Yes, you heard that right. Top quality universities, no tuition fees, and degrees respected worldwide. This makes Germany a dream destination for ambitious minds across the globe. Fact 8. Germans recycle everything. Seriously. There are 5 types of trash bins in most households. People take pride in sorting their waste correctly. Recycling here isn't just a chore, it's a civic duty. And this habit has made Germany one of the cleanest, greenest countries in Europe. Fact 9. Germany has a forest that inspired fairy tales. The Black Forest, with its deep trees and foggy paths, was the setting for many of the Brothers Grimm stories. It's a real place, mystical, quiet, and breathtaking. Even today, walking through it feels like stepping into a storybook. Fact 10. Despite being a global powerhouse, Germany hasn't forgotten its past. Museums, memorials, and history lessons ensure that every generation learns from history. This honesty and reflection have made Germany not just stronger, but wiser. Germany is not just engineering and efficiency, it's forests and fairy tales, it's beer halls and libraries. It's a country that thinks with its head and feels with its heart. Which fact surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more amazing facts about fascinating countries, subscribe and stay curious. See you in the next video.